Chapter 1129. Late at night, another deep-sea flood dragon attacked the Blue Wind port, but it was secretly stopped by the Gong Gong Navy under the command of Candle Dragon. The next morning the sea breeze was cold, mixed with tiny snowflakes, which smashed on the face, especially painful. When Lin Muyu returned to her tent after patrolling the camp, she discovered that Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were brewing coffee in her living quarters. She had even brought back the equipment for brewing coffee from Earth. The two girls had already perfected the process of heating the coffee with alcohol. It was a rare opportunity to drink warm, fragrant coffee in Shattered Cauldron Realm. Damn it, I can't live in peace. Feng Jixing walked in while cursing. He raised his head and said respectfully, "Your Highness and Princess are here as well." "Greetings, Your Highness." "Good morning, Your Highness." Qin Yin smiled and said, "Commander Feng, what's making you so angry? Sit down and have a cup of tea." "Thank you, Your Highness." Feng Jixing sat in front of Lin Muyu and said, Last night, the second deep-sea flood dragon attacked our port and overturned 3 ships and a fortress ship. Damn it, that fortress ship is our main warship. It can be used for transport and artillery battles. But this one cost over 100,000 Jining coins to build, and it sank with a wave of the dragon's tail." "I know." Lin Muyu pondered for a while and said, "Last night I sent over 100 Gong Gong Navy soldiers into the deep sea to investigate. This morning they reported back that because of the climate change and divine punishment, the air temperature has dropped, but the deep sea is heating up. Therefore those deep-sea flood dragons couldn't stand the heat and all came ashore. Comparatively they like the climate on land better." "How many deep-sea flood dragons are there?" "Tens of thousands. If nothing unexpected happens, we will receive many reports of coastal fishermen being attacked by deep-sea flood dragons in 3 days." "Do we need to send people to kill them?" "We can't. Ordinary soldiers are no match for deep-sea flood dragons. 100 soldiers may not be able to defeat a flood dragon, and the scales of these flood dragons can even resist magic crystal cannons." "My goodness, is he really that powerful?" Feng Jixing clicked his tongue and said, "Then forget I said anything. But your Gong Gong Navy is powerful and good at water battles. Why don't you send them out to kill those flood dragons in case those animals do harm to the world?" "I've already ordered Candle Dragon to be in charge of the coastal defense. 30,000 Gong Gong Navy warriors will be divided into over 100 legions, patrolling our coastal areas to ensure that nothing goes wrong." "That's good." Feng Jixing clapped his hands and smiled. "Your Highness, is my tea ready?" "Wait a moment, I'll be done soon." Qin Yin smiled sweetly. At this moment 2 beautiful figures walked in from outside. They were Chu Yao and Ouyang Yen. "Sister Chu Yao, you're here?" Lin Muyu stood up and personally moved a chair for Chu Yao. After Chu Yao sat down, she smiled sweetly and said, "So there are so many people. You must be here for something, right?" Chu Yao's eyes were as clear as water as she said in a low voice, "It's about the herbs. Over 30% of our warriors have frostbite on their hands and feet. The frostbite is spreading very fast, which will affect their fighting abilities. I've ordered to prepare gloves, boots and other cold-proof items for them, but they can't be cured immediately. We still need some medicines to help them heal." "Don't you have any in stock in the department?" asked Feng Jixing. Chu Yao smiled, shook her head and said, "We did have some, but they've been used up in the past half a month. The weather is cold and more soldiers are suffering from frostbite. Before I came here, I've already sent a purchase list to the chambers of commerce in the 5 Valley City and Muyu City. The stores in the departments of spiritual medicine are all out, but these merchants still have a lot in stock. However, the funds of the departments of spiritual medicine have been used up. Therefore, this cost has to be paid by the Ministry of Revenue." Qin Yin walked over with a cup of coffee, put it in front of Chu Yao, smiled and said, "I see. How much in total?" 800,000 Jining coins. Chu Yao took out a list of funds from her pocket and said, "This list was issued by the Department of Spiritual Medicine and the Ministry of War. If I want to get the money from the Ministry of Revenue, I need the signatures of 2 people. One is yours and the other is Your Highness's." "No problem." Qin Yin smiled cheerfully, reached into her pocket, and took out a dark blue signature pen. "Wait a minute, Xiaoyin." Lin Muyu was speechless and said, "If you sign with a fountain pen, the Ministry of Revenue might not recognize it." "It's okay, I have the imperial seal." "That's right, sign it." After Qin Yin signed, Lin Muyu also signed her name. Following which, she took out the marshal's seal from her Chengkuan bag and stamped it. After that, she handed it over to Qin Yin. After Qin Yin stamped the Empress's imperial seal, it would be considered as an official signature. Chu Yao happily took the receipt, sat down again and took a sip of coffee. She couldn't help but frown and say, "Wow, this taste is a little weird." Qinin smiled and said, Yes, I thought so too at first, but I felt much better after that." "Sister Chu Yao, this is a specialty from Yu's hometown?" "From Yu's hometown?" Chu Yao blinked her eyes and immediately took another sip. She smiled and said, "I like it. I will come over often in the future, is that okay?" "Of course." At this moment, Feng Jixing also took a sip and couldn't help but spit it out. "Wow, why does it taste like this?" Lin Muyu, Qinin and Tang Xiaoxi all stared at him. Cough cough, the taste is actually quite unique. Feng Jixing laughed awkwardly. At lunchtime, everyone ate together in Lin Muyu's tent. Even the Empress and the Marshal's meals weren't much better. They had porridge, flatbread and a pot of meat soup. Furthermore, the meat was dried wild boar meat. It was hard to swallow and everyone's faces turned green. However, this was military rations and there was nothing they could do about it. There had never been any good meals in the military camp, and even the dried rations were very laughable. The main dried rations were flatbread or flatbread that was squeezed out of rice and dried in the sun. Once the troops were on the move, the spiritual fire division couldn't cook. Usually they would just hastily boil water and let the soldiers soak the rice flatbread for a meal. In a war of life and death, no one would care about whether they ate well or not. They only cared about whether they could eat their fill and whether they had the strength. In the afternoon there was a military conference. Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing presided over the military conference. The commanders of all the major armies arrived one after another. Qin Yan, Tang Zhen, Chen Xiaoli, Su Jiantao, Wei Chou, Xiang Yu, Beili Tsang, Chen Feng and the others were all present. The two sides of a huge long table were filled with high-ranking generals, and there was a heavy guard outside. These generals were too important. They were the core of the entire empire, and they had to be strictly protected. 3 huge paper scrolls formed a coastal defense map on the long table. On the map, small areas were marked, including the defenses of the Shattered Cauldron Realm and the coast of the Celestial Pole continent, as well as the details of all the islands in the East Sea and even the northern continental shelf. All the generals looked grave, and the atmosphere of an unprecedented war spread out. Everyone was as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The opponent in this war was definitely not easy to deal with. After all, the opponent's military strength was more than twice their own. "Marshal, when are we launching the attack?" Everyone was silent, and only Xiang Yu opened his mouth to speak. "According to our preparations, we can go out to sea and start the war 3 days ago." "I know. Wait a moment." Lin Muyu placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and slowly walked past the generals. She came to the other side of the map, pointed at the West Mountain Province and said, "The crux of this war is here." "West Mountain Province?" Wei Chou was stunned. "Milord, are you talking about the Baizhe mercenaries?" "Emin?" Lin Muyu nodded. "The Baizhe mercenaries are a chess piece that I left in the Celestial Pole continent many years ago. Now this chess piece has already caused Yangshang to be unable to eat or sleep in peace. Therefore Yangshang will definitely face the Baizhe mercenaries as an opponent. After all, there is room for others on one's bed." Zhang Wei clenched his fists. "In my opinion, it would be better to directly charge over and use the West Mountain Province as a springboard to wipe out the army of that vile person Yangshang in one fell swoop." Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. "Old Zhang is purposely setting us up as a bad example again." Everyone laughed heartily. Zhang Wei was completely confused. Lin Muyu continued, "First of all, Yangshang's military strength far surpasses ours. Coupled with the fact that the Celestial Pole continent's armored cavalry is extremely powerful, their total cavalry numbers over 500,000, and over 1,000 dragon riders. This is their advantage, while our advantage lies in the magic crystal cannons and magic crystal crossbows. However, once we ascend to the Celestial Pole continent and have a decisive battle with them on land, the speed of the cavalry will be extremely crucial. With Qin Yu's assistance, I believe that Yangshang will also understand how to use the cavalry's speed to wear down our cumbersome magic crystal cannons. In a battle on land we will definitely suffer a loss, and a great one at that." Xiang Yu frowned. "The Lin General means a naval battle?" "That's right." Lin Muyu raised her sword-like eyebrows and smiled. "Only by dragging Yangshang's army into a naval battle can we have a chance of winning. As far as I know, the navy of Yangshang's army is extremely powerful. Their warships can carry millions of troops into the sea. Our great Qin's ship can be called the king of naval battles. Together with the power of the magic crystal cannons, it is enough to deter the opponent. In addition, with the Gong Gong Navy under my control and the Hui army of 8 Desolates province, we have at least a 70% chance of winning. As she spoke, Lin Muyu pressed her hand heavily on the table and said each word forcefully. In this battle, we must annihilate most of the effective forces of Yangshang's army and hold the control of the entire sea in the hands of our Qin Empire. We will suppress Yangshang's forces in the celestial pole continent. After that, we can fight however we want. The key is, how can we make Yangshang underestimate the enemy and be willing to fight with us on the sea? Feng Jixing said. We need to think about it at length. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, Bai Zai's mercenary group is the key. Let's wait for Si Kongyao to come. As for the battlefield, I think it should be near here. He gently pressed his palm on a certain place on the map. Tang Jin's eyebrows relaxed and murmured, Changyuan Island. Chapter 1130. That's right, it's Changyuan Island. Lin Muyu said in a low voice. Changyuan Island is evergreen all year round and has a flat terrain. Furthermore, the island is in the shape of a ring. The inland sea can be used as a safe haven and can anchor at least 3,000 warships, which is enough for us to hide 300,000 troops on Changyuan Island. Changyuan Island is about 240 kilometers away from the celestial pole continent, and it will only take a day to sail there. There are also 2 islands between Changyuan Island and the celestial pole continent called Greenstone Island and Eternal Wind Island. The 3 islands are in a triangular formation. We can use a fleet as bait and set up an ambush on either Eternal Wind Island or Greenstone Island. Once the battle breaks out, the 3 islands will be able to dispatch troops at the same time and form an encirclement, preventing Yangshang's warships from coming in. Xiangyu took a deep breath and said, Why is Lin General so confident? It's not confidence but planning step by step. This is the best result, and what we need to do is to bring Yangshang into the grave we have dug for him. Qian Feng smiled cheerfully. The plan must be more thorough or else it will be difficult to carry it out. That's right. Lin Muyu sat down, took a sip of green tea and said, We will do our best to make the plan even more thorough and perfect. Tang Jin smiled and said, We are all prepared. Marshal, please give the order. I need 2 fleets to station at Eternal Wind Island and Greenstone Island as the vanguard, putting on a show to distract Yangshang's attention. Each fleet has about 50,000 people. Who is willing to go? Everyone was stunned. A mere 50,000 troops was probably not even enough to fill the gaps between Yangshang's 5 million troops. At this time, Qin Yin stood up, cupped his fists and said, Big brother, I am willing to lead the 50,000 vanguard troops of the National Army to carry out this mission. Big brother, please allow it. Yin, Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, Sit down first. Big brother, you think I can't carry out this mission well? Qin Yin was a little anxious. In the chaos of the National Army, Qin Yin had always played the role of the antagonist. Qin Yin really wanted to prove his family's loyalty to the empire. It's not that I can't, but it's not suitable. Lin Muyu smiled and said calmly, Yin, you are naive and straightforward. Once you are in a battle, you will be easily bewitched by your opponent. I need 2 more mature people to carry out this task. Since no one is saying anything, I will take my place. Su Jintao, Qian Feng, you 2 will carry out this task. Su Jintao and Qian Feng stood up and cupped their fists. Yes, Marshal. We will not let you down. You must be extra careful. We will depart tomorrow morning and I will contact you through the Scout B. Yes. Qian Feng cupped his fists. Thank you, Lin General, for your trust in us. No. Lin Muyu shook her head and smiled. You are all famous generals of the present age. I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to command a group of famous generals in this unprecedented war. Everyone laughed. In the evening, a speedboat entered the nearby waters and entered the harbor under the protection of 8 Imperial Navy warships. Then, a row of cavalry galloped away and entered the center of the Qin army. Yao is here? Lin Muyu was very excited after receiving the news. She led Wei Chou, Feng Jixing and the others out of the tent. In the distance, Si Kongyao rode over on a warhorse, her face full of joy. Big brother you. She leapt from her horse and flew into Lin Muyu's embrace, hugging this big brother whom she had not seen for a long time tightly. Tears swirled in her eyes. The pressure she had endured these days was really too great. Yao Yao. Lin Muyu helped her wipe her tears and said gently, Is everyone all right? Everyone's fine, everyone's fine. Si Kongyao's shoulders trembled slightly. But big brother you, our West Mountain province has fallen. I led 150,000 troops to board a ship first. 3 days later, we received news that West Mountain Province has fallen. The Bai Zhe mercenaries left in Shiping City have all taken off their uniforms and fled into the countryside. It's good that you're fine, Lin Muyu gently stroked her hair. When will the troops you brought arrive? They will arrive at Blue Wind Harbor in a day. From now on, you will follow by my side. This war still needs you. Amen. At this time, Liu Bai and a few of the Bai Zhe mercenaries' deputy commanders dismounted and knelt on one knee. Greetings, Marshal. Rise. Lin Muyu asked, Bai, how was the situation in the Heavens Pole continent when you left? Yangshang ordered Qinyu to lead 1,000,000 troops to swallow up our West Mountain Province and Huiyuan Province. They should have already set up defenses along the coast and are preparing to welcome Great Qin's troops. Qinyu's 1,000,000 troops. Yes. What is Qinyu like? Feng Jixing asked. Lin Muyu's expression was grave. He has a strategic mind and is extremely cunning. He is an opponent that must be taken seriously. Damn. I originally thought that Yangshang would personally supervise the battle. I didn't think that he would let Qinyu lead the troops. This is troublesome. You're swearing, Mu. Tang Xiaoxi said. Alright, sorry. Lin Muyu touched her nose. Feng Jixing frowned. Is Qinyu really that scary? Yes. Lin Muyu pondered and said, You can say that. If Yangshang is the one leading the troops, 10 Yangshang combined won't be a match for any one of us. But if it's Qinyu, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to lure Qinyu's 1,000,000 troops to the sea for a decisive battle. Qinyu is full of schemes and is a cautious person. He won't attack easily if he doesn't have a 100% chance of winning. Feng Jixing patted his shoulder. It's okay. Qinyu is a man now, not a god. There will always be flaws. Don't think too much. Arrange the camp for Bai Zhe's mercenaries as soon as possible. Yes. At night, the heavy snow began to fall again. Only Lin Muyu was left in the commander's tent. Facing the flickering candlelight, his eyes lingered on the 3 islands on the map. He murmured, Food, food. According to the plan, stationing 300,000 troops on Changyuan Island was as difficult as Chen Feng had said. A thorough plan was needed to complete this grand undertaking, and food was the primary problem. The Empire didn't have many warships. Large warships could carry an average of 180 people. 4,000 warships of different sizes could transport 300,000 people and about 100,000 warhorses to Changyuan Island. But this also meant that the warships couldn't carry more food and fresh water. It would take at least 5 days to travel from Shattered Cauldron Realm to Changyuan Island. Even if they carried 10 days' worth of rations for each person, by the time they sent 300,000 troops to Changyuan Island, half of the food would have been consumed. It would take at least 20 days for the warships to return and transport the rations. And this was under the optimistic condition that they didn't encounter any storms. Then what would the 300,000 troops eat on the island? They had to hold on for at least half a month. The army couldn't go without food. If the soldiers went hungry, they wouldn't be able to fight and they might even mutiny. No one wanted to see such an outcome. Lin Muyu had a headache as he racked his brains. Before he knew it, he fell asleep on the table. After an unknown period of time, someone suddenly called him, Brother? Wake up, brother. When he looked up, he saw a scout bee flapping its wings beside his ear. It was Lulu from the Celestial the Arch system. Lulu, come out. Lin Muyu chuckled. Soon, the scout bee landed on the map and flapped its wings. A beam of light shot out from its back and condensed into the image of Lulu. She was still so cute and flamboyant. Flapping her wings lightly in the air, she said with a smile, Brother, why aren't you sleeping on the bed? Oh, I forgot. Why did Lulu suddenly think of looking for me? Brother, you haven't looked for Lulu since you returned to Earth. I thought you didn't want me anymore. Of course not. Brother, you look so depressed. Did you run into some trouble? Lulu clasped her hands together and looked at Lin Muyu with a worried expression. I did run into a problem. What's the problem? Tell Lulu. Transporting rations. Lin Muyu said, I need to transport a large amount of rations to Changyuan Island, but I don't have enough warships. What do I do? Lulu, do you have a way to build some ships for me? Build ships. Lulu blinked. I'm afraid not. It would take too much time. Lulu has been busy planting potatoes during this time and has no time to do anything else. But, if you really want to transport rations, why do you have to build ships? Oh? Lulu has a way. Yes. Lulu flapped her wings and smiled. Did you forget about the scout bees, brother? Back then, the Celestial the Arch system created tens of billions of scout bees. There are at least 500 million of them left in Shattered Cauldron Realm. Although a scout bee can only carry a limited amount of weight, it can still carry something the size of a soybean. As for rations, Lulu can break down the dried potatoes into very small pieces and let the scout bees send them to Changyuan Island. Isn't that enough? Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat and she was pleasantly surprised. Yes, why didn't I think of that? Lulu swayed her hips and chuckled as if she was asking for praise. Brother, praise me. Praise me. Lulu is the most capable. Good. Is it Changyuan Island? Lulu has located it. Yes. Soon, Lulu scanned the coordinates of Changyuan Island. Suddenly, the entire island appeared in front of Lin Muyu. The jungles, plains, mountains and animals on the island appeared in real time. Lulu said, there are no large animals on Changyuan Island. There are 542 medium-sized animals and more than 10,000 small animals. There are 27 caves on the island, and each cave can store about 400 tons of rations. So, Lulu ordered the scout bees to send the rations to these caves? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded heavily. Because of the snow, the rations would definitely be damp and moldy if they were left in the open. It was a good choice to put them in the caves. Whoosh. A beam of light dissipated. Lulu went to work. Lin Muyu was relieved. She turned over, took off her clothes and covered herself with the quilt. She could finally sleep in peace. Chapter 1131. The next day the war drums rumbled. Rows of cavalrymen, Pidao soldiers, and archers boarded the ships and set off with the sound of the horn. It was windy from the northwest at this time, so it would take them less than 7 days to reach Greenstone Island and Jiufeng Island. 2 huge battle flags were written with the words Su and Qian. Su Jiantao and Qian Feng stood under the flag with their horses in a dignified manner, waiting for Lin Muyu and Qin Yin to bid farewell. Rustle, rustle, the war drums were getting heavier and heavier. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stepped on the snow toward the senior generals who were about to set off. Your Highness. Su Jiantao and Qian Feng knelt on one knee at the same time and saluted. Commanders, please dispense with the formalities. Qin Yin raised her hand gracefully and said, this expedition will be extremely dangerous. I hope that both of you will work together and make great contributions to the great Qin Empire. Yes, we understand. Qian Feng looked up at Lin Muyu and asked, Lin General, is there anything else? Yes. Lin Muyu slowly walked forward with her hand on the hilt of her sword and stood side by side with Su Jiantao and Qian Feng. Her eyes fell on the 10 fifth-ranked deputy generals behind them. Although their ranks were not high, they were all captaincy and held military power. When they saw Lin Muyu looking at them, they immediately knelt down and said, Greetings, Marshal. Lin Muyu nodded and said calmly, You are all brave generals of the Qin Empire. You are the vanguard of this expedition. Remember, you must listen to the orders of General Su Jiantao and Qian Feng. From today on, you are no longer just generals of the Longdan Army Camp in the National Army, but will be assigned to the Vanguard Camp. You must listen to your superiors in all matters. If you disobey, you will be killed. Do you understand? Yes, Marshal. After all, the 50,000 soldiers assigned to Su Jiantao were transferred from the Longdan Army Camp, while the 50,000 soldiers assigned to Qian Feng were transferred from the National Army. Lin Muyu had to establish their authority first. Otherwise, she might not be able to command these high-ranking generals. Don't worry, Lin General. We will definitely be of one mind and serve the Empire. Qian Feng's eyes were filled with gratitude. After all, Qian Feng was also an extremely intelligent person. He understood Lin Muyu's intentions the moment she spoke. Su Jiantao also cupped his fists and said, Don't worry, sir. We will definitely complete the mission. Alright, all of you take care. Once the naval battle is over, I'll hold a celebration feast for all of you. Go ahead. Be careful on the way. Yes. The two of them turned around and led their horses away, never looking back again. Very quickly, their figures disappeared into the wind and snow, leaving only the shadows of 2 azure cloaks swaying in the snow. Dong, 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 the sound of the war drums became louder and louder. 100,000 imperial warriors set off for battle. Qin Yin stood there as if she had lost something. She looked at the East Sea with her beautiful eyes and had mixed feelings in her heart. What's wrong, Xiaoyin? Lin Muyu could see that she was feeling uneasy. Brother Yu, we sent them to the battlefield, but we can't guarantee that we will bring them back alive. Is this fair to them? I feel. Qin Yin bit her red lips and murmured to Lin Muyu, Sometimes I feel like a bad woman. For the sake of my own world, I let these people who love me embark on a path of no return. Lin Muyu's heart ached. She stepped forward to hold her shoulders and said, "It's not like that. They are all soldiers and protecting their homeland is their duty and mission. No one will blame you. You are the Empress and every soldier feels honored for fighting for you. All the more you cannot be shaken. The war is only for the sake of a greater rule of the world." Will there really be a greater rule of the world? Yes, it won't be too far away. Lin Muyu coughed, tightened the belt of the robe in front of Qin Yin's chest and said, "It's cold outside. Let's go back." Okay. Accompanied by Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao, Qin Yin entered the main tent. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu gave Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, Qin Yan, Qin Xiaoli and the others a look. Everyone understood tacitly and immediately followed Lin Muyu to the commander's tent. The commander's tent was filled with warmth, and the guards placed the furnaces in one by one. "Lin General," Xiangyu shouted. Suddenly he didn't know what to say and just sat in his seat woodenly. "I know what you want to say, Commander Xiangyu." Lin Muyu smiled in relief and said, "We'll set out in 5 days. We'll mobilize 300,000 soldiers to board the warships, and we can start to gather provisions and transport them to the ships now. In addition, these 300,000 soldiers must be the most elite troops of the Empire, and no one is allowed to make up the numbers." "Set out in 5 days? Tang Jin frowned. "Our provisions are not ready yet. I ask Lin General to reconsider. We're going to Changyuan Island, that barren land, and not the celestial pole continent. Once we're on Changyuan Island, there won't be any more provisions to speak of. We can't let the 3 armies eat tree bark, right? I've already prepared the rations. Just set off for Changyuan Island." Lin Muyu had absolute confidence in Lulu's efficiency. She was the strongest person in this land. If Lulu started a war of steel, perhaps neither Great Qin nor Great Shang would be able to resist. Feng Jixing said, "You first plan the composition of these 300,000 soldiers?" "Yes." Lin Muyu pondered for a moment, then put the military orders on the table and said slowly, 300,000 soldiers, 100,000 in the Longdan army camp, commanded by Wei Chou. Receive the order." Wei Chou stepped forward, saluted respectfully and then took the order arrow. Lin Muyu continued, 50,000 elites of the Imperial Army, commanded by Feng Jixing. Receive the order. Feng Jixing stood up, took the order arrow and said, "This subordinate obeys. As for the rest, the State Guarding Army, Mingshan Army, National Army, Seven Seas Army, Iron Blade Army, and Imperial Navy will each select 25,000 elites. They will be commanded by Tang Zhen, Xiangyu, Qin Yan, Qin Xiaoli, Qin Yong, and Beili Tsang respectively." "Yes, Marshal." The 6 of them stood up to receive the order arrow, their faces full of reverence and solemnity. This battle concerned the future fate of the Empire, as well as the future fate of the 3 realms. The war of gods had become a war of mortals. No one knew if these mortals would become gods again in the future. After Lin Muyu finished distributing the prepared order arrows, she pondered for a moment and said, "I will oversee the Central Army and advance and retreat together with everyone. This trip must be carried out in secret. Don't let the Celestial Pole continent know our whereabouts, and even more so, don't let the people of the Celestial Pole continent know that we are on Changyuan Island. Otherwise all our efforts will be in vain." Xiangyu frowned and said, "Marshal, what should we do if the Dragon Knights of the Celestial Pole continent discover our whereabouts?" "Don't worry, we also have aerial troops." Lin Muyu said, "Commander Xiangyu, have you forgotten the 8,000 Xingtian army under my command? They ride the undying phoenix and can travel unhindered in the sky. I will order them to patrol the skies around Changyuan Island in advance. Once traces of the Dragon Knights are discovered, they will immediately launch an attack. Therefore you don't have to worry about the news leaking out." "That's great." This subordinate no longer has any doubts. A hint of joy appeared on Xiangyu's face. Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Go back and make preparations. Prepare more lifeboats, medicine and dry rations. In addition, the elite troops of each army must be reorganized. 3 days later, report to me the name list of all Kiliarchs and officers above them. I want to take a look." "Yes, Lin General." Everyone left one after another. Only Wei Chou stayed in the commander's tent. He was from the Longdan army camp, and the commander's tent was located in the middle of the Longdan army camp. Naturally, he didn't need to leave. This time, 100,000 of the 300,000 troops were from the Longdan army camp. It was clear that the Longdan army camp was the main force of the war. Wei Chou didn't dare to slack off. He stood up with a cautious expression and said, "Sir, are you really not going to bring any Dragon League champions?" "Yes, the Dragon League is not good at sea battles. I can't send them to their deaths. Then you can at least bring Fuzhu. Yes, you have reminded me. Fuzhu will definitely go with us to Changyuan Island. In addition, Xiao Yin and Xiao Shi will also go with us to oversee the overall situation. If Her Highness Yin also goes, that will be great. She will definitely inspire the three armies. You really know how to talk. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. She asked, Wei Chou, how is your practice with the Ho Yi Bao? How far can you draw it now? Wei Chou thought for a moment and said, Sir, please forgive me. When I was still a god I could draw the bao 1,000 meters, but now I can only draw it about 700 meters. Any further and I can't guarantee that I can hit the enemy. 700 meters? That's enough. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and said, Remember, you will be on the same ship as me in the sea battle. Leave the command of the Longdan army camp to Situ Sen, Situ Shui and Fengshi. I want you to advance and retreat with me. When the time comes I will attract strong enemies to kill me. I will use myself as bait and you must shoot one at a time. Don't miss me. Cold sweat appeared on Wei Chou's face. I will do my best. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. She reached out and patted his shoulder. She said, Tell me honestly, isn't it especially difficult to be my subordinate? That's right, Wei Chou grinned. It's good that you know it, sir. Lin Muyu smiled. Brat, this time I really have to rely on your Ho Yi Bao. The power of the Ho Yi Bao is mysterious. It can break through the dimensional space and achieve unobstructed shooting. It's simply a killer of gods. Yang Shang has so many God Emperor experts under him. We will be under great pressure on the battlefield. It all depends on your performance. Once the battle starts, I will let Xiao Yin, Xiao Shi and Ouyang Yan protect you. You just need to find targets and shoot them. Let Her Highness and the princess protect me together. Wei Chou was dumbfounded. Sir, why don't you let Her Highness protect me? I'm afraid I will be very nervous. You're so useless. Just stay calm. Yes, I'll do my best. At this moment, the curtain of the commander's tent was suddenly lifted. Si Kongyao walked in gracefully with Liu Bai and other generals of the Baizhe mercenary troop. She said angrily, Brother Yu, why don't you assign us, the Baizhe mercenary troop, to battle? Lin Muyu complained incessantly. Oh my god, this little lady is here. It's not easy to deal with her. Chapter 1132. Yao, listen to my explanation. I won't listen. I won't listen. Don't be impatient, calm down and listen to me. I won't listen, I won't listen. Si Kongyao sat angrily on her seat, her beautiful eyes staring at Lin Muyu. She was just short of crossing her slender legs on the table to show off her coquettishness. Liu Bai touched his nose and coughed, saying, Commander, we're here to argue with Lin General, not to act coquettishly. Wei Chou burst into laughter. What are you laughing at? Si Kongyao glared at him with a murderous look. Wei Chou didn't dare to laugh. This young lady was Lin Muyu's sworn sister and held the military power of the 300,000 Baizhe mercenaries. She was an extraordinary person and he couldn't afford to offend her. Si Kongyao continued, Big brother Yu, tell me clearly, why is there no one from our Baizhe mercenaries among the 300,000 people? Lin Muyu was a little embarrassed and explained, I'm thinking for the sake of the Baizhe mercenaries. Think about it, Yao, the Baizhe mercenaries have only come from the celestial pole continent for a day and are exhausted from the long journey. The soldiers' physical strength is already at the limit. I can't continue to let them fight. It's too unfair to them, right? Even if what you say makes sense, I still won't accept it. At least give me 10,000 people. You conscripted my warships but didn't let us go to war with you. This is unreasonable. Lin Muyu was speechless. Wei Chou smiled and said, My lord, forgive me for being blunt. Since Changyuan Island has enough provisions, why didn't you let Miss Si Kongyao go with you? Besides, we only conscripted less than 500 warships from the Baizhe mercenaries. They still have 700 warships left. These 700 warships can transport more than 100,000 soldiers plus provisions and supplies. Wei Chou lowered his voice and said, Your Excellency, let me say something unpleasant. Although your plan is thorough, you have forgotten one thing. What will be sent to Changyuan Island through the scout bees is only food for humans. What about the provisions for the war horses? We have brought nearly 200,000 war horses and without fodder, we won't be able to support them. Besides, the weather is freezing and the soldiers need a lot of charcoal to warm their bodies. The Spirit Fire Department also needs wood to cook. The wood on Changyuan Island will be cut down in 3 days. We still need to bring a large amount of wood and fodder to Changyuan Island. Lin Muyu was surprised and couldn't help but look at Wei Chou. This brat had indeed grown into a great general who could take charge of an area by himself. He still remembered things that even she had neglected. However, he had probably held it in for a long time and only dared to speak up when Sikong Yao appeared. All right then, Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, then we'll add another 50,000 soldiers. Yao, choose 50,000 elites from the Baizhe mercenaries to go with me. In addition, these 50,000 elites will only need 300 warships to transport them. Transfer the remaining 400 warships to transport charcoal and provisions. This time I'll give you a military rank, Chief Logistics Officer. What do you think? Why don't you give me a vanguard official? Si Kong Yao stamped her feet and asked coquettishly. Lu Bai coughed and said, Big sister, you should know when to stop. A Chief Logistics Officer is still an officer. Si Kong Yao pouted and said, Okay then, it's a deal. You can't go back on your word. Don't worry. Go and prepare quickly. Give me your officer list in 3 days. Okay. Celestial Pole Continent, Shiping City. This city, which originally belonged to Shiping County Lord Si Kong Yao, had now fallen into the hands of Yangshang's army. Ever since Qin Yu led his army into the city, the owner of this city had changed. Inside Shiping Prefecture, heavy snow was falling. The guards and attendants were all wearing thick cotton clothes to withstand the abnormal weather. In the depths of the mansion, green smoke drifted from the heaters. A group of officers dressed in the military uniforms of the Shang nation surrounded a huge square table. On the square table was a sand table map of the west coast. Cough, cough, cough. Qin Yu coughed violently. Due to the abnormal weather and the fact that the heavenly punishment had taken away all of his divine power, his physical condition was deteriorating day by day. He placed his palm on the table of the sand table, but his gaze was fixed in the direction of the coastline. He said, Are there any movements from the Shattered Cauldron realm? A captaincy cupped his fists and said, Reporting to Marshal, we received news 3 days ago that Lin Muyu has gathered nearly 1 million soldiers in Lingdong province. They seem to be ready to attack us. Qin Yu couldn't help but smile faintly. Are you sure that Lin Muyu wants to face us head-on and not attack us? This can't be right. Captaincy said, Our Shang dynasty has over 2 million soldiers, while the Qin dynasty only has less than 1 million soldiers. Their military strength is less than half of our army, yet they want to attack us. Isn't this courting death? This can only mean that you don't understand Lin Muyu. Qin Yu's eyes flashed and he said, Lin Muyu isn't someone those mediocre so-called famous generals in the various countries of the Celestial Pole continent can be compared to. He repeatedly comes up with ingenious schemes and foresees the enemy. In the entire Celestial Pole continent, no one can be compared to him. Even the famous Marshal Gong Shangming of the Tianji Empire was defeated by Lin Muyu. Marshal, you're exaggerating, aren't you? On the other side of the sand table, a man wearing a purple cloak slowly stood up from his chair. It was the Lionheart demon god, Philae. His eyes seemed to carry a demonic nature, and his whole body gave off an awe-inspiring evil aura. He smiled and said, If Lin Muyu was really that powerful, he wouldn't have been suppressed by our army in the Shattered Cauldron realm for so many years. Don't you think so, everyone? All the generals laughed loudly and repeatedly agreed. Qin Yu frowned and said, Deputy Marshal Philae might have a point, but the art of war says that those who underestimate the enemy are easily defeated. Therefore, it's best that we don't underestimate Lin Muyu and the Qin army. At the end of the day, Lin Muyu is just a mortal. A divine light shone in Philae's eyes as he sneered arrogantly, If Lin Muyu really dares to attack the Celestial Pole continent, I won't wait for him to enter the sea. I'll go there alone and chop off his head. What does Marshal think? Qin Yu was stunned. He didn't know whether what Philae said was true or not, but he could confirm that Philae was the only god in the entire plane. Furthermore, he was a cruel and ruthless demon god. Only he had the qualifications to say such big words. However, whether he could kill Lin Muyu under the protection of Feng Jixing, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and the others was still unknown. Furthermore, even if Lin Muyu had lost his divine power, it didn't mean that he didn't have the strength to fight back. There's a plum forest in the backyard of Shiping Prefecture. Furthermore, I've prepared over 10 elegant women who are proficient in the 4 arts. The weather is cold and the plum blossoms are in full bloom. Why doesn't Deputy Marshal Philae come to the backyard to admire the plum blossoms and drink wine? Said Qin Yu with a smile. Are you expelling me? Asked Philae, raising his eyebrows. I wouldn't dare. Philae sneered and circled around Qin Yu's body. That's fine too. You're the punitive expedition marshal appointed by Emperor Shang, and I'm merely the deputy marshal. The military authority of this million-strong army belongs to you. However, Marshal, don't forget that fighting a war is done with fists and not a glib tongue." As he spoke, Fillet turned around and laughed. "Commanders, who is willing to go to the backyard with me to admire the plum blossoms? Feel free to come." There were over 10 commanders in the two armies. In the end, with a wave of Fillet's arm, there were actually 7 commanders who followed him to the backyard to admire the plum blossoms. Chen Yu clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot with anger. "Marshal, please calm down." A commander lowered his voice and said, "Lord Fillet is Emperor Shang's favorite, and he's also the vanguard general. Even Emperor Shang is somewhat afraid of him. Marshal, you must not provoke him." "I know. Let's continue our discussion." "Yes, Marshal." Chen Yu coughed violently again and said, "When Lin Muyu deploys his troops, he focuses on the word, surprise. But no matter how capable he is, he only has so many troops in his hands. Everyone please watch carefully. Currently, there are over 1 million troops garrisoned in Shiping Prefecture. Si Kongyao has left us a complete province and a well-defended coastline. In the end, if Lin Muyu wants to defeat us, he will have to go ashore. Therefore, we don't need to fight for the sea. Just let the Qin army go ashore. Once they go ashore, they will be outnumbered. The iron hooves and dragon riders of our great Shang army will let Lin Muyu know the tragic outcome of challenging a battle with a great disparity in strength." The group of commanders nodded their heads. Chen Yu emphasized once again, "Remember, no one is allowed to go out to sea to provoke them. Even more so, do not attempt to engage the Qin army in naval battles. As long as we stabilize our position, Lin Muyu's army will definitely be in disarray. They won't be able to last long without rations. Once their rations run out, it will be time for us to destroy the Qin army in one fell swoop." "Yes, Marshal." This time, there was even more conviction in the eyes of the commanders. 3 days later, the Blue Wind Harbor was calm and peaceful. Amidst the curtain of snow, warships left the harbor one after another and sailed into the Eastern Sea. There wasn't even the sound of war drums. Since early morning, the snow had been getting heavier and heavier. And this heavy snow undoubtedly provided the best cover for the 3 armies to set out. The 350,000 soldiers boarded the warships one after another and left the coast. And the warship that Lin Muyu was on was the last to leave. Almost everyone on this flagship were important people. Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Wei Chou, Chu Yao, Ouyang Yen, Chang Liang, Feng Zhanlin, Nangong Lai and the others were all on this warship. "Heave the anchor, flap the sails." The sergeant shouted loudly. The warship retracted the deck and slowly left the Blue Wind Harbor. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others stood at the stern of the ship, watching the mainland getting further and further away. Wei Chou raised his hand to cover his eyes, looked at the camp in the distance and said, "My lord, are we really not going to tear down so many tents?" "Yes, let the tents remain in their original position." "Why do we do this?" Sidu Sin was a little puzzled. Lin Muyu smiled faintly, "It's very simple. No matter how we guard against it, the Dragon Knights of the Heavens Pole continent will definitely be able to investigate everything in Lingdong province. I have already ordered for these tents to be left behind. Every day there will be people from Lingdong province lighting fires around the tents and pretending that smoke is normal in every camp. Once the Dragon Knights report back to Qinyu, naturally Qinyu will not suspect that we are not in Lingdong province. In this case, these tents will be our best cover." Lin General is wise. "But why do you say that Qinyu might not suspect us?" "Qinyu, he is an extremely intelligent person." Lin Muyu reached out and pressed her hand into the snow on the side of the ship, feeling the cold and said, "We must proceed with caution. Otherwise, as long as Qinyu finds any of our flaws, he may consign us to eternal damnation." Chapter 1133. Late at night, nearly 400 miles away from the Winter Ridge province. The waves on the surface of the sea surged, and the most violent part even stirred up waves that were nearly 5 meters high. Although the battleships built by the Empire were all very large, they were still bobbing up and down like small boats, as if they could be capsized by the mysterious power of the sea at any time. Except for the helmsmen, scouts and soldiers who were keeping watch, most people had already gone into their cabins to rest. The fleet seemed to be very quiet. 350,000 people and nearly 4,800 warships were divided into 24 groups, sailing in the ocean according to the echelons. The warships alone had spread for tens of miles on the ocean. Many small lamps were hung on each ship, which were used to communicate with each other and illuminate the flag bearers. The snow stopped again, but the ocean surface grew colder. The waves bumped against the sides of the ships, but were already frozen by the time they landed on the ships. On the deck, every 5 meters, there was a sentry with a sword in their hands. These sentry guards stood like mountains, motionless, not moving even a little bit no matter how the wind blew and how the snow fell. On the deck, a person was standing wearing a white fox fur cloak. It was Lin Muyu. He placed his hand on the handrail of the ship and closed his eyes. He activated his spirit pulse technique and sensed everything around him at the bottom of the sea. 5 kilometers away, the vanguard fleet led by Feng Jixing was opening up a path. Even further away there were auras flying at high speed in the air. Those were the patrolling troops of the Xingtian Heavenly Army. The Xingtian Heavenly Army would play an extremely important role in this expedition. The Empire could only rely on them to deal with the dragon riders. In the deep ocean, enormous creatures seemed to be ready to move. They were deep-sea flood dragons. Apart from them, about 10 meters under the ocean, Gong Gong's navy warriors were guarding the fleet with weapons in their hands. They didn't show their heads for the whole day, but they had been guarding the fleet. In fact, no one knew that in the afternoon, over 10 deep-sea flood dragons attempted to attack the fleet, but were all killed by Gong Gong's navy warriors on the bottom of the ocean. Otherwise, another great disturbance would be caused. The spirit pulse magic reached further away and no power could be sensed at all. Lin Muyu couldn't help but furrow his brows. Had his cultivation fallen to such an extent? He could only sense auras within 5 kilometers. If it were in the past, sensing auras from 1,000 kilometers away would not be an issue. He raised his head and looked up at the sky. There was a faint sound of thunder. Although the heavenly punishment had already descended, it did not seem to have left. The weather was still getting worse by the day. He did not know what was happening in the heaven realm. It felt as if the heaven realm had already changed. Otherwise, the mortal realm would not have such a terrible scene of doomsday. The first demon god had already descended. It was a god. It seemed that the new laws and order had already been established. The future gods would be divided into 3 levels, high, middle, and low. However, if they were all cruel and ruthless demon gods, it would be a nightmare for humans. Where was the future? Lin Muyu took a deep breath and couldn't help but sigh. In the past, when she had the power of an emperor god, she felt that she could control everything. But now she couldn't anymore. Everyone's fate was in the hands of heaven's will. His Royal Highness is still awake? A gentle voice sounded from behind him. He didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. It was Ouyang Yen. Ouyang, why aren't you sleeping? Lin Muyu asked. Ouyang Yen walked forward and stood side by side with Lin Muyu. As if she felt cold, she put her face on Lin Muyu's shoulder and snuggled up to him. She said, I can't sleep. What about you? I can't sleep either. Lin Muyu looked at the distant waves and asked, why can't you sleep? I'm worried that I won't be able to get married in the future. Ouyang Yan's eyes flashed with slyness. She smiled and asked, what about you? I'm worried that I'll lose the battle, Lin Muyu answered truthfully. Oh my, it's not easy. Our invincible Highness Yu is actually worried that he can't defeat the celestial pole continent? It seems that your confidence is just an act for others to see. You can say that, Lin Muyu smiled bitterly and asked, Ouyang, have you seen the heavenly punishment before? No, I'm such a young god. How could I have seen this kind of mighty heavenly might? Ouyang Yan's bright eyes stared at Lin Muyu's face. After looking for a while, she smiled and said, I'm afraid that what you're really worried about isn't the battle, but the devil god called Filet from the other side? You're so smart. Lin Muyu glanced at her approvingly and said, the difference in strength between gods and mortals is too great. Back then Luo Lan, a mere false god, was able to destroy our mountains and rivers. Now, a middle god has actually appeared on the other side. No one knows how strong this middle god is, so I'm always uncertain. Middle god, Ouyang Yen raised the corner of her mouth and said with a smile, I heard that the Southern Divine Realm used to have such a ranking system. The gods were divided into 3 ranks, lower god, middle god, and higher god. Later this system was abandoned and redivided into 3 ranks, hierarch, divine king, and god emperor. They are essentially the same. If nothing goes wrong, that middle god should be around the level of divine king. Of course, it's not impossible. After all, after the heavenly punishment, order was re-established. Perhaps the new gods are far stronger than the old gods. Lin Muyu frowned and said, what are we going to use to fight against the evil devil god in the future? We'll deal with it when it comes. What are you worried about? Besides, the laws are mutually reinforcing. Since there are devil gods, then there will definitely be righteous gods in the future. Righteous gods. Yes, they're more or less the gods who defend the righteous path. Lin Muyu suddenly thought of the demon emperor's words, the righteousness of heaven and earth is vast and everlasting. Everyone with an obsession had a breath of righteousness, but would this breath of righteousness really be recognized by the heavens and ascend to become a god? At least until now, Lin Muyu hadn't felt the slightest summon from the divine oracle, let alone the recovery of her strength. Ouyang Yen blinked her eyes as if she had guessed what Lin Muyu was thinking. She hugged one of his arms and said with a smile, "It's all right. This devil god Fillet only ascended to become a god when his savagery reached the pinnacle. As for us, once the obsession in our hearts reaches the pinnacle, we will definitely regain our divine power just like you and me right now." Right now? Lin Muyu looked at her. That's right. Ouyang Yen gently twisted her slender waist and rubbed her full chest against Lin Muyu's arm. She said, "Our current posture is originally not tolerated by the world, but now it seems so natural. What? It's because I, Ouyang Yen, respect and love you. I've long placed you in an extremely important position at the bottom of my heart." Is that so? Isn't it because of the darkness of the night? Lin Muyu smiled and pulled back her arm. Don't be like this in the future. If Xiao Yin and Xiao Shi see this, I'll have to kneel on the washboard. Humph, Your Highness, you really are a coward. Can I not be a coward? As soon as she finished speaking, Lin Muyu's entire body suddenly trembled. Not good. What's wrong? A powerful aura has intruded into our fleet's range from the sky. It's a dragon rider. The celestial pole continent's dragon riders have come. Should we head over now? No need. Lin Muyu waved her hand. Situ Sun has already brought the Xingtian army over. Situ Sun was also a dragon rider, and together with the power of the Xingtian army's undying phoenix knights, a trifling celestial pole continent's dragon rider wasn't a problem at all. Sure enough, roughly 10 minutes later, a row of Xingtian army soldiers appeared in the sky, covered in raging flames. Situ Sun spurred on an enormous dragon and brought several dragon riders from the Longdan army camp down from the sky. At the same time, they tossed the corpse of an enormous dragon onto the deck. Snow flew everywhere. Situ Sun flipped his body over and landed on the deck. He respectfully said, "Sir, this dragon rider tried to spy on our military intelligence, so we've already killed him on the spot." Lin Muyu shot at a glance. This was a blue dragon. Its abdomen had been pierced and there was a sword wound on its neck as well. This was Situ Sen's masterpiece. Meanwhile, the dragon rider was a warrior in his early 20s. He was extremely young and his chest had been pierced through by the Xingtian army's flame spears, moreover more than 10 flame spears. One could imagine just how bitter the battle was back then. "Are you sure there aren't any other dragon riders?" Lin Muyu asked. "Yes, we're sure there aren't any. Our alert radius is 100 miles. He entered our range a long time ago, but he still came to die without even knowing it." Very good. Continue to maintain vigilance. Lin Muyu glanced at the dragon rider's corpse and said, "Push it to the bottom of the sea to feed the fishes." Yes. Ouyang Yen pursed her red lips and didn't say anything. She just watched a group of armored warriors push the corpses of the dragon riders and dragons off the ship. Boom. Water splashed, and instantly, a group of nightmare people appeared and began fighting over the corpses. Unlike Gong Gong's navy, nightmare people were more like wild beasts. They could eat anything they wanted and they were unrestrained. Qian Feng didn't even bother to restrain them. As long as they didn't hurt his own people, it would be fine. Only by maintaining their nature could they maintain their fighting power. Ouyang Yen knew that Lin Muyu was known as the most famous general of the empire, and she was also a benevolent general. Logically speaking, she should bury the enemy's corpses as a sign of respect. However, she couldn't do that in the sea. She could only throw the corpses away or else they would be a burden. This kind of behavior didn't meet the standard of a benevolent general, but it was very much in line with the style of an excellent commander-in-chief. The east gradually turned bright and the dawn came. However, this was only the first day. Lin Muyu felt a bit tired, yawned and said to Situ Sen, "From now on, you and Wei Chou will be in charge of today's patrol. I'm going to take a nap." "Yes, Lord. Have a good rest." Situ Sen carried his long sword and said, "Everyone continue the patrol with me." "Yes, Deputy Commander." Although Lin Muyu was the commander-in-chief, Situ Sen, Fengshi, Situ Shui, and a few other deputy commanders truly controlled most of the military power in the Longdan army camp. Therefore, the soldiers respected the deputy commanders as much as they respected Lin Muyu, the commander-in-chief. The flagship warship rose and fell with the waves, swaying left and right, causing many people to vomit. Wah! Sounds could be heard in the cabin from time to time. It was really hard for them. Lin Muyu's room was next to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's. When she opened the door, there was a warm quilt and a warm stove. After taking off her cold armor, she crawled into the quilt and fell asleep in the blink of an eye. Chapter 1134. After an unknown period of time, Lin Muyu slowly woke up. She felt something churning in her stomach and she felt like vomiting. She immediately turned over and got up, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She was actually seasick. Looking outside, it seemed that the sky was gloomy and night was about to fall. She got up, opened the cabin door, and saw 2 Imperial guards standing respectfully outside. One of them said to Tang Xiaoxi in Qin Yin's cabin, "Your Highness, dinner is ready. 3 portions. Is the marshal awake?" The Imperial guard glanced at Lin Muyu and said, "He's awake and he's looking at me." Qin Yin burst into laughter and flew out of the cabin. She looked at Lin Muyu with her hand on the wooden plank and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, will you accompany me and Xiaoxi for dinner?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "I'll wash up first." "Okay." She took out a toothbrush and toothpaste from her space bag, and took some fresh water from a cup. Then she went to the deck and walked to the edge of the ship to brush her teeth. "Greetings, Marshal." A group of officers and soldiers saluted her. Lin Muyu raised her hand and ordered them not to stand on ceremony. Then she continued to brush her teeth. After brushing her teeth, she picked up the snow on the side of the ship and rubbed it on her face. The snow quickly melted and served as the friction to wash her face. It also made her feel refreshed instantly. It was so cold. Wei Chou walked forward and said respectfully, "Madam, today's voyage was very smooth. We traveled nearly 700 miles during the day, much faster than we expected." 700 miles? Lin Muyu could not help but smile. "In that case we might reach Changyuan Island in 4 days. "Yes." "Go and rest. I'll be in charge of patrolling defense at night." "Yes, my lord." Lin Muyu turned around and entered the cabin. There were a total of 4 to 5 rooms at the back of the ship, and all of them were occupied by the upper echelons of the empire. The aroma of the dishes attracted Chu Yao and Si Kongyao. As a result, the 5 of them had a meal together, and it was considered a special treatment. There was also fresh and tender delicacies as well as mellow and fragrant soups. This was considered a privilege of the Empress. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu and Chu Yao also followed along to enjoy the blissful life. The Qin Empire didn't lack money, so they didn't have to go to the deck to eat cold bread like soldiers. "How's the military situation?" Qin Yin asked as she scooped soup for Lin Muyu. "Everything went well." Lin Muyu said, "Last night we killed a dragon rider who tried to spy on the military situation, and we also received a letter from Qianfeng and Su Jiantao. They have already arrived at Greenstone Island and Jiufeng Island to serve as outposts for the 3 armies." Si Kongyao smiled and asked, "I still don't quite understand Brother Yu's intention in sending these 2 fleets ahead of time." Outposts can provide information, and they can also serve as bait. "The more important thing is the bait, right?" Qin Yin asked with a smile. "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "I really want to fight Qin Yu at sea, and with Qin Yu's intelligence I can naturally see through it. He won't be happy to fight me at sea, so I have to throw out a huge bait to force him to fight me at sea." "Is Qin Yu really that powerful?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. "His intelligence isn't below yours or mine," Lin Muyu said concisely. "If that's the case." Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips and said, "If that's the case, our chances of winning will become smaller again." "No, we will definitely win." Lin Muyu's eyes were full of deep meaning. "What?" the 4 girls asked together. "It's very simple." Lin Muyu's handsome face brimmed with confidence as she said, "There is one thing that the celestial pole continent will never be able to match up to us, and that is unity. Xiaoyin, you are the empress, but you didn't order the execution of a national traitor like Qin Yi after capturing him. This kind of bearing and grace will allow us to win the hearts of the people. Think about it, even generals like Jin Yifan and Xiang Yu, who once had rebellious thoughts, were placed in important positions by us. Who wouldn't be loyal to us?" As she spoke, Lin Muyu stirred the vegetable leaves in the soup with her chopsticks and said, "Although we only have half the number of people in the celestial pole continent, we are united. However, Qin Yu is different. Qin Yu is alone, and people like Yangshang, Filei, Dora, and Baiming Yuan won't be of one mind with Qin Yu, so Qin Yu can only use half of his intelligence. This way Great Qin will definitely win." Qin Yin smiled sweetly, gratified. Then I can rest assured. Tang Xiaoxi pouted. Brainwashing expert Lin Muyu? Lin Muyu laughed. He loved and hated these two girls at the same time. How annoying. He picked up the bowl and finished the soup in one gulp. He then stood up and said, "All right, it's getting dark. I'll be in charge of patrolling the fleet tonight. You guys sleep well, I'm going to carry out my military duties." A Grand Marshal has to personally patrol the fleet? Chu Yao's mouth fell open. I have no choice. This is a special time, so I can't be careless. He left the girls with his back as he walked out of the cabin with his sword hilt. Night fell and the deck became even colder. In the sky, a giant dragon was soaring against the wind, and riding on its back was a beautiful girl. It was Situ Shui. It had been so many years, but Situ Shui hadn't aged at all. In fact, she looked even younger than before. "My lord, can I accompany you on patrol tonight?" Situ Shui asked with a smile. "It would be my honor." Lin Muyu stood at the bow of the ship and said, "Don't you want to take a look in the sky, my lord?" Situ Shui asked with a smile. "Up in the sky. That's fine." Lin Muyu pondered for a moment before she suddenly opened her palm and pointed outside the ship's railing. "Acatosaurus, come out. It's your turn. Don't sleep in every day." Awoo! The wall of the alternate dimension was broken, and the majestic Acatosaurus twisted its body and flew out of the hexagram. Clouds appeared around its body, and it called out to Lin Muyu several times respectfully as a greeting. Lin Muyu jumped onto the dragon's back and grabbed the Acatosaurus's red mane. "Let's go. Follow me to patrol the fleet." Acatosaurus understood. It quickly twisted its body and soared into the sky with Lin Muyu. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp on the deck were dumbfounded. A real dragon. It was much stronger than the dragon mounts of Situ Sen and Situ Shui. In the sky the clouds were dense and Lin Muyu quickly flew into the clouds. Beside her, other than Situ Shui, there were a few more dragon knights and hundreds of Xingtian heavenly army guards. "Ah Shui, how many dragon knights do we have?" Lin Muyu asked. Situ Shui blinked and chuckled. "My lord, we originally had 41 dragons. Later, Miss Si Kongyao smuggled a few dozen from the celestial pole continent. Now, the Longdan army camp has a total of 114 dragons, which is equivalent to 114 dragon knights. Although we can't compare to the celestial pole continent in terms of numbers, we have formed a powerful force of our own." "Very good," Lin Muyu urged Acatosaurus to fly forward. Soon, they saw rows of battleships moving in a triangular formation on the surface of the sea. It was the Imperial Army fleet controlled by Feng Jixing. From afar, they saw a small table on the deck of the flagship of this fleet. Feng Jixing was sitting upright and still making tea. It was rare for him to be in such a mood. On the side, Zhang Wei, Guanxing and the others were drinking tea with him. They didn't look like they were facing a great enemy. However, it seemed that this was the style of the Imperial Army, elegant and not flustered. Once the enemy appeared, they would fight more valiantly than anyone else. Lin Muyu continued to fly forward. She went deep into the clouds. She saw bolts of lightning raging in the purple clouds above. "My lord, we can't fly up anymore. It's dangerous," Situ Shui said hurriedly. "The lightning there is extremely destructive. Be careful. Don't follow us," Lin Muyu said in a deep voice. "I want to see what's in these clouds." Situ Shui was speechless. Swoosh. Acatosaurus turned into a blood-red light and flew into the clouds with Lin Muyu. The moment they entered the clouds, lightning swept over, just like the lightning that imprisoned the 7 luminaries demon emperor in the Ba Huang domain. Clang. The Xian Yuan sword was unsheathed. Lin Muyu's sword skills were swift and fierce. She slashed the lightning tentacles several times in a row. However, Acatosaurus didn't seem to be afraid of the lightning at all. It raised its head and let out a deafening dragon roar. It twisted its body and flew toward the place where the purple clouds were denser. Lin Muyu could faintly feel that there seemed to be a very strange power in that place. The electric net in front of them became denser and denser. So much so that Lin Muyu had to constantly slash at it to advance. Looking through the layers of electric net, Lin Muyu's heart suddenly trembled. There seemed to be a purple-black energy core, protected by layers of electric net. It emitted a very dense demonic aura, like a demonic heart. Demonic heart? Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and urged Acatosaurus to rush over. However, the piercingly cold electrical net came charging at him. With a loud boom, the powerful energy surged and sent him flying back along with his dragon. No, the energy field of the central domain was too strong. It was not something that Lin Muyu could touch with her current abilities. Ow ow! Acatosaurus let out a miserable groan and roared as if it was facing a great enemy. Is this the power of the demonic realm in the mortal world? Lin Muyu thought to herself. She sheathed her sword and no longer tried to hit a stone with an egg. She grabbed Acatosaurus's mane and was about to leave. But at this moment there was a sudden chi-la sound. A faint golden rune appeared near the energy field of the demonic heart. Then faint runes appeared. It was a kind of power with righteousness. Although it was very small, it made Lin Muyu feel a strong affinity. Righteousness of heaven and earth, vast and everlasting. The demon emperor had once said that. Although the power of this righteousness was very small, it had already been born at the side of the demonic heart. Since ancient times, righteousness and evil had mutually restrained each other. Where there was a demonic path, there must be a righteous path. This made Lin Muyu a little excited. The power of righteousness seemed to have begun to appear in this plane. This was good news. At this moment, the two forces collided again. Boom. There was an explosion and the small golden crystal instantly disappeared. It was directly extinguished by the demonic energy. The biting cold air swept Lin Muyu and Acatosaurus out of the clouds. Lord, are you all right? Situ Shui flew over with her people. I'm fine. Lin Muyu waved her hand. She looked up at the thunderous clouds in the sky and said, I'm fine. He was a little disappointed. In the end, righteousness still couldn't defeat evil. Currently, the demonic energy in the Shattered Cauldron realm was far stronger than righteousness. Otherwise, a demon god like Philae wouldn't have been born. The spirit pulse technique spread out. Within a radius of 100 miles, there were dozens of such demonic hearts. They covered the sky of the continent and wreaked havoc everywhere. Chapter 1135. 100 miles south of Shiping City, Nanhu County. Cries and screams could be heard throughout the county. In the Barbican of the county capital, a group of old and young were kneeling on the ground. Their families had already been tied up with ropes and forcibly recruited as recruits of the Shang nation. The allowance given to their families was only a mere 50 copper coins. Are they done? A general holding a saber grabbed the reins of his horse. His eyes were filled with anger as he said, Kill anyone who dares to obstruct the troops from leaving the city. This is a critical time. Don't hesitate. But Lord Jin Chong, these people are the citizens of the kingdom. A young 10-man squad leader was shocked. Jin Chong was the Chiliarch of the 3rd Legion and one of the main people in charge of recruiting new soldiers. He slowly lowered his saber and said, Are you questioning my orders? I dare not. The 10-man squad leader hurriedly knelt and apologized. Please don't be angry, Lord. In that case, do as you say. These people are courting death by obstructing the army from leaving the city. Yes, allow me to threaten them. No need, I'll do it myself. Jin Chong urged his horse forward. The king's fighting flames surged on his arm. With a sudden shout, his saber flashed and an old man's head was sent flying with the wind. Blood splattered everywhere. An old man who had come to send his son to join the army had become a dead soul. Those who interfere with military affairs will be killed without mercy. The battle is imminent. Clear the path for me. Jin Chong's face was filled with ruthlessness. Yes, kill. A group of soldiers from the kingdom of Shang mounted their horses and waved their sabers as they started a massacre in the Barbican. In the blink of an eye, the sky was filled with cries and blood. Nearly 100 citizens had become corpses. Thunder rumbled in the sky. An extremely evil power hidden in the dark clouds rolled over and turned into strands of demonic aura that descended from the sky. It hummed and evaporated, devouring the blood on the ground. At the same time, strands of demonic aura circled around Jin Chong. His brow began to light up. The decaying godhead was awakened. Then, the demonic aura turned into a demonic body and seeped into his body. Jin Chong's eyes were filled with violence and excitement. Despite the intense pain his body was in, he was still able to laugh out loud. He knelt on one knee and looked up at the sky. Thank you, God, for bestowing upon me the demonic body. In the sky, the gigantic demonic shadow was ever-changing, sometimes in the shape of a human, sometimes in the shape of a giant bell, and sometimes in the shape of a surging river. The extreme and evil demonic breath was so oppressive that it almost suffocated the crowd. That inhuman voice once again reverberated in the air. Jin Chong, killing is second nature to you and you have attained the diabolism. Today, I bestow upon you a Dharmakaya and confer upon you the title of first-tier lower deity. I hope that you will serve the diabolism well in the future. Yes, thank you, exalted goddess. Jin Chong was still kneeling on the ground. He was a little disappointed. After all, Philae was a mid-god, while the power he obtained was only that of a low god. Moreover, Philae was a titled god while he was an untitled god. Their statuses couldn't be compared at all. However, Jin Chong was ecstatic at the moment. He was the second god on the continent. Anyone would be wary of him. Beside him, all the soldiers became even more reverent. They smiled and said, "Congratulations, Lord Demon God Jin Chong. It's all for ourselves. Don't stand on ceremony." Jin Chong stood up and said, "Brothers, follow me to see Marshal Chen Yu. We can always ask for a deputy commander. If I can become the deputy commander, all of you will be promoted by 3 ranks." "Yes, thank you, Lord." Tianji City. The Demon Realm Oracle had just disappeared when Yangshang could no longer sit still. "Damn it, who is Jin Chong?" Yangshang punched the armrest of his seat. Beside him, the Northern Heaven Realm's deputy commander Wu Chang said respectfully, "He's a celestial warrior. He used to be a divine king. Now, he has attained the diabolism and become a demon god." "Another one." Yangshang's eyes flickered with fierceness. He said, "What does this damned heavens mean? My subordinates have all attained the diabolism, but I'm still immortal. My cultivation has stagnated." Wu Chang smiled. "Marshal, why are you so angry? Attaining the diabolism is the will of the heavens. Moreover, Marshal's fate is determined by the heavens. There will definitely be a stronger Dharmakaya waiting for you." "Deputy Commander also knows about the Dharmakaya?" "Of course. Without a Dharmakaya, it's impossible to become a god just by relying on the godhead." Dharmakaya?" Yangshang took a deep breath and said, "Is there any news from the Northern Heaven Realm?" "No, Lord Divine King Dongming did not receive any oracle. If I'm not mistaken, he should have been punished by the heavens and lost his divine power. Otherwise he would have contacted us long ago." "It's fine." Yangshang clenched his fist and said, "When Divine King Dongming regains his divine power, I will have already unified the Celestial Pole Continent and the Shattered Cauldron Realm. At that time, I will offer Lin Muyu's and Qin Yin's heads as a gift to Lord Divine King." "Ah, Marshal is right." Wu Chang placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and raised his eyebrows. He said, "Marshal, I think we should immediately send out an imperial edict to appoint Jin Chong as the commander of the battalion and give him the title of captaincy. That way, Jin Chong will be able to work for Marshal with peace of mind." "That's for the best." A bright light flashed in Yangshang's eyes. "There are more and more demon gods. I'm afraid I won't be able to continue being a marshal if there are more. Alright, is there any news from Chen Yu?" "Chen Yu has been well versed in the art of war since he was young. Marshal, don't worry. There won't be any mistakes in handing over the million-strong army to Chen Yu." "All right." Yangshang's gaze was cold as he said, "From tomorrow onwards, I will be entering seclusion to study the heavenly Tao. No one is to disturb me unless it's an important military matter. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." The East Sea was a magnificent sight. The snow had stopped once again. After the winds blew, the waves surged. The warships were bobbing up and down along with the waves. It was worrisome. The soldiers on the deck all crouched down, afraid that they would be struck into the water by a rapidly spinning wave. In such an environment, there was no chance of survival if they were to fall into the water. The waves were too turbulent for humans to handle. Another demon god has appeared. Lin Muyu stood on the deck of the flagship's bow. She stood upright like a mountain. No matter how the warship bobbed up and down, she remained motionless. Cultivators were all training, and stabilizing their footing was just a basic skill. Experts like Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and Situ Sen had long reached the point of perfection. They would definitely not be as pathetic as ordinary soldiers. Jin Chong, another unknown person. Wei Chou frowned and said, "If I'm not wrong, he should be a god of the Northern Heaven Realm. What's going on with the heavens? Why do they keep sending down oracles to appoint demon gods? The righteous path is declining and the demonic path is flourishing. This is expected." Lin Muyu pointed to the clouds and said, "The sky is filled with demonic energy. After the reconstruction of order, the laws are also filled with chaotic energy. The power of the demon world now far exceeds the power of the righteous path. Moreover, killing to become a god is not difficult at all. The appearance of the demon god is also expected." "Will the demon world unify our 3 realms?" Situ Shui asked worriedly. "I don't think so." Lin Muyu was also not sure. She said, "At least I think so. The heavenly Tao will not allow the demon world to rampage endlessly like this. Those evil people can prove their Tao, so good people can also prove their Tao. It's just that the time is not right." Wei Chou frowned and said, The power of the demon gods is far greater than ours. Once the war starts, these two demon gods are bound to kill our compatriots. I'm afraid, the moment the heavens open their eyes, all of us who have the qualifications to prove our Tao and become gods will be killed. No, definitely not. Gods aren't invincible. Lin Muyu held the hilt of the Shenyuan sword and said, "Pass down the order. Speed up and reach Changyuan Island as soon as possible." "My lord, you want to?" Situ Shui blinked her eyes. "Finish the war quickly. We can't let the people of the celestial pole continent continue to get the demon bodies." Wei Chou, Situ Sen, Fengshi, Ouyang Yan and the others were silent. Anyone could see that Lin Muyu's confidence was shaken. Yes, in this situation it was normal for her to be shaken. After all, Lin Muyu was a mortal, not a god. Greenstone Island, an island full of green, but the green was not the forest, but the color of the stones on the island. Although it was covered by snow, there were still many green stones that rendered the island full of vitality. In the middle of the island, tents had been set up, and the seaside was full of warships. In the camp, the Longdan army camp and Great Qin's purple Yinhua flag fluttered. In the central tent, Su Jiantao was ordering a group of military staff officers to make a sand table of the area around Greenstone Island. In the vicinity of 5 kilometers, there were other islands of different sizes besides Greenstone Island. The big ones were as big as Zetian Palace, and the small ones could be submerged by the waves at any time. "My lord, here are all underwater islands which are the legendary submerged reefs. Our fleet must not pass through here or it will be destroyed." "Okay, I got it. Continue to send small ships to survey. We must completely grasp the surrounding terrain." "Yes." The staff officer turned and left. Another person hurriedly walked in. It was a captaincy of the Longdan army camp. He said hurriedly, "Commander, the enemy has appeared." "Oh, speak." "We found a medium-sized warship 5 kilometers away. It appeared with the flag of the Kingdom of Shang. It should be the warship responsible for scouting in the celestial pole continent. Do we need to send large ships to destroy it with magic crystal cannons?" "There's no need." Su Jiantao waved his hand lightly and said, "There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Just send 2 ships out. Use the agility of the ships to avoid the enemy's firepower. Use the magic crystal crossbows to shoot the sides of the ships. After sinking the enemy, don't leave any survivors. Kill all the enemies in the sea." "We don't want any captives?" "No. We're running low on rations. We can only last for 10 days at most. We don't have any food to feed the captives. Go and execute it. Continue to be on high alert." "Yes, I understand." Chapter 1136. 3 days later, the fleet led by Lin Muyu arrived at Changyuan Island. This crescent-shaped island was simply a uniquely endowed harbor. The small boats were in front, and after scouting out the situation on the reefs, the warships docked one after another. Most of the ships anchored in the shallow waters and clustered around this safe haven of Changyuan Island. An army of 300,000 was no small number. In the blink of an eye, Changyuan Island was almost completely covered. Under Lin Muyu's orders, the soldiers found a mountain of potato chips in the cave. The spiritual flame division of the various battalions began to cook in the afternoon so that the soldiers could eat a good meal and recover their strength. By nightfall, over 100 cargo ships were transporting food from Changyuan Island to the garrisons of Greenstone Island and Eternal Wind Island. Unknowingly, the 3 great armies had already formed a triangular formation that was directly facing the celestial pole continent. The next morning, 2 more dragon riders appeared in the sky, but under the pursuit of Lin Muyu and the Xingtian army, not a single one was able to escape. They were all buried in the sea. When it was close to noon, a fishing boat from the celestial pole continent entered Changyuan Island's waters and was similarly seized. For 3 days in a row, the number of dragon riders that had died under the ambush of Changyuan Island had already reached 9. Lin Muyu began to feel uneasy, and even Feng Jixing, Weichou, Xiangyu and the others were becoming a bit impatient. The repeated probing of the enemy had already made them lose their patience. During the afternoon military conference, every commander was given a cup of coffee, and it was personally brewed by Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. It was quite good to use as a refresher. Feng Jixing blew at the foam on the coffee and took a small sip. He put down the coffee and said, "What exactly is Chen Yu thinking? He sends dragon riders to their deaths time and time again. Could he have sensed something?" "Perhaps." Lin Muyu's gaze rested on the western coast on the map. "According to the military intelligence we've obtained, the ports of Xishan province seem to have all been sealed. Chen Yu has strictly forbidden any warships from heading out to fight. It seems like his sense of smell isn't bad. Xiang Yu frowned and said, then we can't keep waiting like this. We're wasting a large amount of rations and charcoal here. It's definitely not a long-term solution. Yeah. Tang Jun frowned and said, Lin General, we should strike first and gain the initiative. We can't strike later and be restrained by others. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. Order Su Jiantao and Chen Feng to send a small fleet of fast ships to cause trouble. Bombard Chen Yu's port from afar and test his reaction. What if he doesn't respond? What should we do? Feng Jixing asked. Zhang Wei grinned. Then let's go ashore and kill them all. No, we can't go ashore. That'll be exactly what Chen Yu wants. Lin Muyu shook her head. No matter what the situation is, we can't go ashore before we've dealt a heavy blow to Chen Yu's main force. This is my highest military order. Whoever dares to disobey it will be beheaded. Zhang Wei grinned, while Lin Sun, Luo Yu and the other Imperial Army generals held back their laughter. Old Zhang was honest and straightforward, but she was also the one the marshal rebuked the most. Celestial Pole Continent, Shiping Prefecture. It was a major conference that was held once every 3 days. The huge military conference table was filled with people. Almost all the main generals of the million-strong army were present. Even the 2 great demonic gods, Filei and Jin Chong, were present. Chen Yu was wearing the marshal's cape, looking like a young man who had achieved success. He looked at the crowd indifferently but remained silent, not saying a word. Marshal. A commander stood up and cupped his hands. Many of the Dragon Rider scouts we've sent out have not returned, and many of the light boat scouts have also been attacked. The Qin army's fleet is less than 200 miles away from us. As long as Marshal gives the order, our million-strong army will be able to overturn the mountains and overturn the seas, destroying Lin Muyu's army in one fell swoop, consigning him to eternal damnation. That's right, Marshal. What are we waiting for? Another commander echoed loudly. Chen Yu didn't answer. Instead, he glanced at Filei and Jin Chong and asked, what do the 2 great demonic gods think? Jin Chong was only a commander of a battalion, so he didn't have the right to be present. However, his status was special. He stood up with a smile and said, they're just a bunch of mortals. What's so hard about defeating them? Lord Filei, I believe that's what you're thinking, right? Filei smiled faintly. According to the military intelligence we have, the Qin army's warships are limited, and the number of troops they can carry is also limited. In addition, they're on a long journey. They're really looking for death. As long as we attack with all our strength, they're bound to be routed and perish in this vast sea. But I don't think so. Chen Yu smiled. Filei frowned and said impatiently, what do you mean, Marshal? My lords, please listen to my explanation. Chen Yu put his hand on the table and said, in the past few days, we've sent a total of 51 Dragon Riders out to sea to patrol. So far, we've found that the Qin fleet has appeared on Greenstone Island and Eternal Wind Island. However, the 9 Dragon Riders sent to patrol Changyuan Island have all died. They didn't even bring back any news. Can't you smell it? What smell? Filei asked. It's very simple. There's something wrong with Changyuan Island. Chen Yu smiled faintly. The more they don't want us to know about the situation on Changyuan Island, the more it shows that there's something fishy going on there. If we rashly send troops, we'll really fall into Lin Muyu's trap. This man has always been scheming. His seemingly calm appearance often hides infinite murderous intent. At least this is what I know about him. Is that so? Filei sneered. Then what's Marshal Chen Yu's plan to deal with the enemy? Defend. Chen Yu said, the 2 sides are far apart, and it will be very time-consuming and laborious to transport supplies. As long as we defend, the Qin army will collapse without attacking. Only by forcing them to land can the Northern Heaven Realms God Race army attack the battle formation and show their power. What do you think, my lords? So Marshal's brilliant plan is just to be a coward? Filei suddenly laughed. Many generals who were not convinced by Chen Yu also laughed. The kingdom of Shang was a reorganized empire. Naturally, most of the generals of the Blackstone Empire and the Tianji Empire would not be convinced by Chen Yu. They naturally fell to Filei's side and followed Filei's lead. In any case, they would not let Chen Yu have an easy time. Chen Yu's face turned white and red. He suppressed the anger in his heart and said, Emperor Shang conferred me the title of Marshal. I will put the interests of the empire first in everything I do. My lords have received the imperial edict of Emperor Shang to assist me. I hope that we can let go of the past and work together to defeat the strong enemy. So, Marshall is going to be a coward to the end? Philae's eyes were full of ridicule. I'm not a coward, I'm just defending. Whatever? Philae stood up, brushed the dust off his sleeves and said, since Marshall is determined to defend, I will go hunting in the forest south of the city. I hope that the day the Qin army comes ashore, Marshall will not be scared out of his wits and still defend. Farewell. Philae directly left the conference hall. Jin Chong also stood up, cupped his hands and smiled, farewell. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the generals in the conference hall had left, leaving only a dozen or so people sitting there in silence. Sigh. Qin Yu slumped on the marshal's seat. His face was full of exhaustion. He said, mobilize all the magic crystal cannons in the empire. Move them all into Shiping City. Prepare for war. Marshal, most of the magic crystal cannons are on the warships. Dismantle them. Yes. Another 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On November 17, 7743 of the Empire calendar, Su Jiantao personally led 20 warships to bombard Shiping Port and burned more than 40 warships of the Kingdom of Shang. On November 18, 7743 of the Empire calendar, Qian Feng led his troops to bombard Songdong Port and sank more than 70 warships and merchant ships. But what was strange was that Qin Yu never made any response, as if he had fallen asleep. This made Lin Muyu sleepless all night, and his eyes almost turned red. No matter how the Qin Empire provoked him, the keen Qin Yu did not seem to fall for it at all. On the morning of the 19th, Lin Muyu just drank a bowl of soup and immediately went to the marshal's tent to deal with military affairs. The troops of the 3 major islands added up to a total of 450,000. Almost all the affairs, big and small, had to go through the hands of the marshal. There was a wisp of warmth in the stove. Lin Muyu knelt on the meadow and flipped through the register like a towering mountain. Beside her, Weiqiu opened the book one by one and read it unhurriedly. According to the accurate news, nearly 300,000 troops of Shiping Prefecture have entered Shiping Port. These 300,000 troops are under the command of Philae. It seems that the contradiction between Philae and Qin Yu has deepened again. 3 days ago, 100,000 tons of coal entered Shiping Prefecture. 2 days ago, Laohan City transported 200,000 sets of armor into Shiping City. Yesterday morning, Philae married 3 concubines. It is said that they are the 3 daughters of Wang Fu, a gentleman of Shiping City. Philae is very fond of these 3 women. Late last night, Philae and Jin Chong brought people to make trouble in Shiping Prefecture again. They are very dissatisfied with Qin Yu. It is reported that Qin Yu seems to intend to reduce the military power held by Philae. The sewer in the eastern district of Shiping City is blocked and stinks. At the side, Si Kongyao giggled. Weiqiu, why do you have to report everything to Brother Yu? If this is the case, how can he manage so many things? Weiqiu was a little embarrassed. These are all information from the people we have planted in the celestial pole continent. They don't know what is useful and what is not, so they can only report everything. Lin Muyu, who was reviewing military affairs, suddenly had a thought. She raised her head and said, Weiqiu, read the last one again. Philae and Jin Chong brought people to make trouble in Shiping Prefecture again. They are very dissatisfied with Qin Yu. No, the previous one. Yesterday morning, Philae married 3 concubines. It is said that they are the 3 daughters of Wang Fu, a gentleman of Shiping City. Philae is very fond of these 3 women. Yes, that's the one. Lin Muyu frowned and said, was there a piece of military intelligence given to me yesterday where Qin Yu issued a military order, strictly forbidding all generals from bringing their families along? Yes, there was such a piece. Lin Muyu's heart suddenly lit up and she said, I've finally grasped this rare opportunity. My lord, what do you mean? Weiqiu was confused. Lin Muyu said, Yao, secretly order the people you left in Shiping City to change into the military uniforms of the Kingdom of Shang and disguise themselves as Qin Yu's subordinates. While Philae is away, go to Philae's residence and capture his 3 concubines under the pretext that the marshal's bodyguards are enforcing the law. Take the 3 concubines out of Xishan province and hide them, intensifying the conflict between Philae and Qin Yu. In addition, spread rumors among Qin Yu's army that Qin Yu has already written to Emperor Shang, asking Emperor Shang to strip Philae of his military authority. Si Kongyao gladly said, Yao obeys. Weiqiu also came to a sudden realization. He laughed loudly and said, this sowing discord is really vicious. My lord, this subordinate is very impressed. Chapter 1137. Imperial Calendar, Year 7743, November 26th. Bang! In the conference hall of Shiping Prefecture, the sturdy pearwood door was instantly pulverized. A group of counselors and strategists who were busy at work jumped in fright and retreated one after another. Amidst the dust, they saw Philae leading a group of generals in with a dark expression. "Where is Jianghu?" Philae's fists were lowered. Demonic flames swirled around him, and a faint domain enveloped the area. It was so oppressive that everyone almost couldn't breathe. At one end of the conference hall table, Jianghu slowly raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot from staying up all night. He asked with a puzzled expression, "Deputy Marshal Philae, what are you doing?" Philae sneered, "What am I doing? You sent people to capture 3 of my wives, and you're asking me what I'm doing? Is that so? What do you think?" Philae slapped an arrest warrant on the table and said, "Isn't this the official document issued by your advisory group? Well done, Jianghu. You've actually carried out your military duties in front of me." "Wait a minute." Jianghu frowned and said, "I think there must be some misunderstanding. Lord Philae is the deputy marshal and has a special status. I will definitely not use military law to punish you. There must be some misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? If that was a misunderstanding, then what is this?" Philae waved his hand, and immediately 2 guards brought in a bloodied man who was beaten up and said, "The marshal should know this man. He is a messenger from your residence. As for the things he sent, the marshal should know even more." Philae gently opened his palm, and instantly, a piece of paper appeared in front of Jianghu. It was written in his handwriting, and the content of the paper was to report to Yangshan that Philae had interfered with military affairs. He requested for Philae to be stripped of all his duties and only be given the status of an ordinary soldier. He wanted him to start from the point of merit and use this method to establish military might. "This is impossible, this is impossible." Jianghu's face turned pale. He shook his head and murmured, "I've never written such a thing, I've never written it. Could it be that the marshal can't even recognize his own handwriting?" Philae sneered, "If you don't even dare to admit what you've done, how can you still have the face to be the marshal of our great kingdom of Shang?" "I said I didn't write it, so I didn't write it." Jianghu gritted his teeth. "Philae, there must be someone trying to drive a wedge between us. It must be like this. You must not believe this kind of false testimony. Give me some time and I will prove that this is all a setup." "Is that so?" Philae's palm that was pressing on the evidence suddenly exerted force. Immediately, a purple demonic flame flew up and instantly shattered the long table in the hall, destroying it along with the evidence. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly as he smiled. "I don't need any proof or setup. Jianghu, remember this, no one can sow discord between us. If I want to destroy you, then I will destroy you. It won't be because of anyone else but because I want to destroy you. Alright, I won't pursue this matter with you. Just don't do it again. Next time, it won't be so easy to deal with. Just be a good marshal and be careful." With that, Philae left with a group of generals. Jianghu stood blankly on the spot, looking at the map that was shattered on the ground. He was so aggrieved that his whole body began to tremble. "Marshal, this." One of the staff officers said cautiously, "Please don't lower yourself to the level of this boorish man. He can't see what you see. There is only power and power in his heart. Please don't lower yourself to his level." Tears welled up in Jianghu's eyes as he clenched his fists and said, "If it wasn't for the sake of the people of the Tianju Empire not being trampled on, why would I have to fight this battle? If it wasn't for the glory of my ancestors, why would I have to suffer such grievances? Immediately send someone to investigate the cause of this matter. Find out who kidnapped Felix's wife and concubines. Also, find a way to find out who wrote that secret memorial and who sent it out. The seal on it is mine, so who stamped it? I'm afraid there's a ghost in our staff group. I don't care who it is, find out for me." Yes. On the 28th of November, the news had already reached Changyuan Island. In the afternoon, all the generals gathered in the marshal's tent. Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin prepared afternoon black tea for the generals. No one knew where the black tea came from, but the generals were so grateful that they almost burst into tears. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were noble, but they served tea like maids. Once the war broke out, they would be fierce generals. This was not something that ordinary people could compare with. Everyone was envious of Lin Muyu. She had 2 good wives and everyone was envious. Of course, no one else could share Lin Muyu's pain. Damn it, he blew a few bubbles on the black tea and frowned. He's not completely furious after being humiliated like this. This Filet's endurance is really good. If it were me, I'm afraid I would have exploded. Feng Jixing said calmly, I'm afraid you didn't use enough medicine to make Filet shed all pretense of cordiality with Qinyu. Why not? There are some things that you don't understand, you. Feng Jixing touched his nose and said, for women, Her Highness Yin and Princess Xi are everything to you. They're worth risking your life to protect, but it's different for Filet. Although Filet likes those 3 concubines very much, they're just like clothes. Once they're gone, they can be replaced or found again. Anyway, Filet doesn't really love them. So, your provocation didn't completely hit Filet's weak point. However, it has already made the relationship between Filet and Qinyu worse. All the generals smiled. Only Feng Jixing had the guts to expose the relationship between Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi. No one else dared to say it out loud. Lin Muyu nodded. Maybe you're right. Does Brother Feng have a bigger and stronger medicine? Yes. Feng Jixing stretched out his arm lazily, almost hitting Wei Chao's face. He waved his hands in apology and said with a smile, stirring up trouble happens to be my forte. According to the information sent by the brothers of the Imperial Guards, Filet's most treasured people aren't women, but his group of subordinates. There's about 100 of them and they're called the Charge Camp. These people followed Filet from the Heaven Realm to the Mortal Realm. They're loyal and devoted to Filet, and they're as close as brothers. If we use the Charge Camp to sow discord between Filet and Qinyu, I'm afraid it'll be enough. How to make use of them is the key. Do you have any ideas? Lin Muyu said in a low voice. Yes. Feng Jixing smiled with confidence and said, Filet has never restricted the Charge Camp, so when the 100 people of the Charge Camp arrived at Shiping Prefecture, they immediately looted some mansions and collected gold, silver, jewelry, and beautiful women from all over the place. The Charge Camp also likes the women from good families. As far as I know, Shiping Prefecture consumes a lot of resources every day, and a large amount of resources are transported from the former Celestial Empire's Laohan City. 3 days later, a batch of weavers from Laohan City will arrive at Shiping Prefecture. There are about 2,000 of them and they're all young women who know how to work. They're responsible for preparing clothing and flags for war. Why don't we start with these women, and encourage the soldiers of the Charge Camp to snatch these women as concubines? Although Qinyu is the marshal of the great Shang dynasty, he's still the former king of Laohan City. The Celestial Empire is Qinyu's flesh and blood, and also his reverse scale. Once the Charge Camp touches these weavers, Qinyu will definitely punish the people of the Charge Camp in a rage. Filet won't let the matter rest. It'll be strange if the two sides don't fight. After hearing this, Lin Muyu took a deep breath and praised sincerely, in terms of stirring up trouble, I'm really far behind Brother Feng. In comparison, I'm really simple-minded. Feng Jixing smiled and said, I only thought of this idea occasionally. Do you think I'm a scheming person? Actually, I'm also very simple-minded. Jianghu held the black tea in his hands and said coldly, you two are too modest. Tang Jin also held back his laughter and said, after listening to Lin General and General Feng's words, Tang Jin feels that this world is not simple. Everything is not what it seems on the surface. This subordinate admires you very much? Only Ling Huyen frowned and said, but the price of this sowing discord is the thousands of weaver maids. They are poor people to begin with. This is too unfair to them. Lin General, do we really have to do this? Lin Muyu gently held her teacup with both hands and said, if the innocence of these 2,000 weaver maids can be exchanged for an unprecedented victory, then this business is very worth it. For now there is no better way. If we don't do this, then the price may be the lives of hundreds of thousands of Great Qin soldiers. As the marshal, I must protect my subordinates. Otherwise, what right do I have to sit in this position as a goody two-shoes? Ling Huyen smiled slightly and said, perhaps Lin General is right. There must be trade-offs. There has always been trade-offs. Lin Muyu looked meaningfully at Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi in the distance and said, as we live in this world, we are always faced with one choice after another. As long as there is a choice, there will be a sacrifice. There are no absolute good and bad people in this world. All I can do is follow my heart and do what I think is right. Feng Jixing stood up and tucked the golden helmet under his armpit. He said with a smile, don't be such a busybody. Those who achieve great things should not be bothered by trifles. If we have decided to do this, then I will immediately start planning. I'm afraid it will be too late. Once those weaver maids enter the city, everything will be over. Lin Muyu nodded, go ahead and do it. Yes, Lin General. Wait a moment. Lin Muyu suddenly said. What is it, Lin General? Feng Jixing turned and asked. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, if possible, tell the news to Qinyu before the charge camp has the chance to defile those weaver maids. Ask Qinyu to do a good deed for us. Yes, your subordinate understands. Feng Jixing turned and left. Ling Huyen pursed her red lips and looked at Tang Jin beside her. She said softly, husband, do you also think we should do this? Tang Jin was slightly startled and remained silent. What is it? Nothing. Tang Jin smiled and said softly in a low voice, perhaps General Feng is right. Those who achieve great things should not be bothered by trifles. Being overcautious will eventually lead to a disaster and implicate the entire empire. Lin General and General Feng are both swift and decisive people. It is a great misfortune for those 2,000 weaver maids to meet such opponents. However, for the people of the Qin Empire, it is a great fortune to have such a military commander. Without such outstanding people, I'm afraid this world will have to fight for many more years and many more people will die. Ling Huyen nodded and no longer had any objections. She only looked at Tang Jin's mottled sideburns and felt an indescribable pain and discomfort. Chapter 1138. 2 days later, Shiping City. Even though a great battle was about to arrive, this bustling city was still filled with the atmosphere of singing and dancing to celebrate peace. At night, lanterns were lit up on the main street, causing the entire street to seem like fireworks. Various restaurants were open for business, and in the most famous restaurant, a group of tall and sturdy men were drinking without end. The charging camp was Filet's most valiant army. The group of people were already drunk and their arms were bare as they talked loudly. The concubines I bought yesterday are really strong, very spicy. Sigh, the concubines I bought are all from brothels, damn, so boring. The entire Shiping prefecture is under the control of Marshal Qinyu, who would dare to rob them? I heard that even Lord Filet's 3 concubines were released because of the marshal's orders. Shoo, lower your voice. At this moment, a shifty-eyed waiter came upstairs, holding a jug of wine in his hand. He said, my lords, the drunken immortal has just been warmed up. Come have a taste. Alright, bring it over and let us have a look. If the wine isn't good, I'll smash your shop. I'll make sure you all are satisfied. A few of the charging camp soldiers took a sip of the drunken immortal and immediately clicked their tongues. Good, it really is good wine. That's right. The waiter said complacently, this drunken immortal is a peerless product from the heavenly Zhu Empire's scorching Han City. It's brewed with the water of snowy mountains and rare fruits. It's just like the beauties of our scorching Han City. Oh, you're from scorching Han City? Yes. Are the beauties of scorching Han City really as good as the rumors say? Of course. The waiter was about to leave when a burly man grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back. The burly man was already drunk. He laughed and said, Kid, tell me, where can I get the beauties of scorching Han City? You can't buy them, can you? The waiter panicked. Sir, please let go of me first. The burly man loosened his grip. Tell me, if you don't give me a good explanation today, I'll strangle you to death. The waiter nodded repeatedly. I'll tell you. If you want to get your hands on the beauties of Scorching Frost City, you either have to go to Scorching Frost City or, there's another way. What is it? 2 days later, a group of weaver maids from Scorching Cold City will enter Shiping Prefecture. They pass through the Forest of No Return and will be protected by about a battalion of soldiers. These weaver maids are all good people. Gentlemen, this is all I know. Are you sure it's 2 days later? Yes, the store has an appointment letter for the accompanying officers. Humph. Let's go. This is none of your business. Yes. The waiter scrambled down the stairs, but there was a faint smile on his face. He thought to himself, my acting skills are really top-notch. 2 days later. At noon there was chaos in the forest outside the city. Someone dared to charge into the camp and attack the army from Scorching Cold City, kidnapping nearly 1,000 women. The news spread like wildfire, and in less than 2 hours, it had already reached Shiping Prefecture. They're rebelling. Qinyu slammed his palm on the table and said, how dare they kidnap women in broad daylight? Are there any military laws? Are there any laws? I will not tolerate this group of black sheep who have violated military discipline any longer. Men, order the military police battalion to move out. Arrest all those involved in the robbery and murder of Scorching Cold City soldiers. There will be no mercy. Yes, Marshal. A staff officer walked forward and said in a low voice, "Marshal, those involved in the robbery seem to be from the Chong camp. Those are Filet's men." "Marshal, are you really going to act against Filet's men?" "Do it. Do it now," Qin Yu said fiercely. "As a marshal, if I can't even protect the people of Scorching Cold City, what kind of marshal am I?" "But this is most likely Lin Muyu's evil plan. Marshal, please look at the bigger picture and not be angered by Lin Muyu." "Umph." Qin Yu gritted his teeth. "Even if it's Lin Muyu's plan to sow discord, can Lin Muyu order the Chong camp to kill the soldiers of Scorching Cold City? He can't. It's Filet, that bastard, who's condoning his men. Arrest them, find out who killed them, and behead them without mercy. I'll give up my position as marshal. If we lose this battle, we lose. It's none of my business. Forget it, I'll go arrest them myself." "Yes, Marshal." For the entire afternoon, Qin Yu led the military police battalion to arrest people. Those who confessed were killed on the spot. In one afternoon they killed nearly 40 soldiers of the Chong camp. It was only in the evening that Felix and Jean Chong returned from their hunting trip. When they heard about this incident, they flew into a rage. Under Felix's command, 5,000 cavalrymen immediately attacked. In less than the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, they surrounded the entire Shiping prefecture. They even forced Qin Yu's 500 guards to disarm and surrender. Bang! The second door of the meeting hall was kicked open by Filet. This time, Qin Yu sat calmly on the marshal's throne. He looked coldly at Filet. He knew that Filet would definitely come. "You killed my brothers?" Filet asked calmly. "They disobeyed military law and should be executed." Qin Yu said calmly, "Filet, you brought people to surround the marshal's residence. Are you trying to rebel? Don't forget, I'm a marshal conferred by Emperor Shang. If you kill me, you'll be making an enemy out of Emperor Shang." "I won't kill you." Filet suppressed his murderous intent and laughed coldly. His laughter made one's hair stand on end. He looked deeply at Qin Yu and said, "However, I have found some letters between you and Lin Muyu. I heard that you want to surrender Shiping City and lead 1,000,000 soldiers to Qin. Is this true?" "That's a fantasy. Why would I surrender to my mortal enemy? Don't tell me you can't even see through such a simple plot to sow discord, Lord Filet?" Both sides were in a tit-for-tat situation. Filet remained calm. He smiled and said, "I don't want to know whether it's true or not. However, I do know that you have twice the number of soldiers, yet you refuse to fight. You're holed up in this small Shiping city and want to defend. I wonder if this counts as delaying the battle?" "Delaying the battle?" Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Filet, you keep saying that I'm delaying the battle, but do you really understand the art of war?" Demonic flames revolved around Felix's body as his aura pressed down, causing Qin Yu's entire body to tremble. Felix lowered his head and stared at Qin Yu as he faintly said, "Marshal, since you don't dare to fight, how about letting this subordinate take your place to command this battle? You'll be delaying the Shang dynasty." "Is that so?" Filet laughed coldly. "Why don't we make a bet?" "What bet?" "I'll lead the attack. I, Filet, will let you, Qin Yu, know the power of my army. I'll let you know how weak the enemy is. If I, Filet, win this battle, you'll hand over your military power. If I lose, I'll hand over my military power and willingly listen to your commands. What do you think?" "You underestimate Lin Muyu." Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh. Good, good, good. "I promise you, as long as you can win this battle, I'll hand over my position and let you take it. It's a deal." Felix turned around and led his subordinates out of the marshal's mansion. The staff officers crowded around him and started talking at once. "Marshal, you can't give up your military power. Filet is just a brute. How can he have the right to take up such a heavy responsibility?" "Marshal, don't be rash." Qin Yu sat there in a daze. Suddenly, a bright light shot out from his eyes. He said calmly, "Lin Muyu, you won't lose so easily, right? You must have a trump card, right? Will you lose?" Will you really lose?" His voice suddenly trembled. On the 1st of December, it was the 22nd day since Lin Muyu led the 350,000 soldiers to Changyuan Island. More than half of the military rations supplied by Lulu had been consumed, but the battle had not officially started. Everyone was getting anxious. Every day hundreds of people came to Lin Muyu to take the initiative to attack Shiping Port. In the marshal's tent, Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing were sipping black tea. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were reading the tactics of the war god. Buzz buzz buzz, a small bee flew over and stopped on the table in front of Lin Muyu. It was impossible to have a bee in this cold winter. This could only mean that it was a scout bee sent by Lulu. Speak. Lin Wuyu said. The bee flapped its wings. Suddenly, a light was projected from its back. Su Jiantao's figure appeared. He bowed respectfully and said, Lin General, there's the latest military information on the East Coast. The Shang army is gathering. It is said that they have gathered a total of nearly 2,000 warships. Based on this estimation, they will send at least 200,000 soldiers. I have arranged a spy to send a letter. According to the Chong camp, the initiators of this attack are Filei and Jin Chong. Their target is my Green Rock Island. Are they finally going to make a move? Feng Jixing couldn't help but laugh. That's great. Immediately order the 3 armies to prepare for battle. Surround them from 3 sides. Let Filei have a life to come but not a life to leave. No, wait first. Lin Wuyu raised her hand to stop him. Feng Jixing and Su Jiantao were startled. Why? You don't intend to fight? Lin Wuyu's brows furrowed. No. It is just that if there are only 2,000 warships, this means that it is not the main force. Moreover, it is only Filei's fleet. This means that Qinyu is still not moving. This is not an attack but more like a probe. Didn't they say that Filei and Qinyu have completely broken off? What is going on? Feng Jixing said, We are unable to find out the specific situation that day. We do not know what is going on. No matter, we cannot fight this battle. We only have one chance to fish. If we want to fish, we have to fish big. Then what should we do? Su Jiantao was at a loss. Fight. Lin Wuyu said, but we can only lose, not win. Su Jiantao, you will only send the warships equipped with steam engines to fight. After a while, use the speed of the steam engines to escape. If Filei's fleet pursues us, continue to report to me. If he doesn't, then wait for a bigger fish. Yes, Lin General. Su Jiantao was also a famous general. His mind was sharp and he quickly saw through Lin Wuyu's intentions. He smiled and said, Filei's army has always been arrogant. This subordinate will use my defeat to add fuel to the fire. Chapter 1139. On the morning of the second day, snowflakes started to fall from the sky. The dense snowflakes seemed to have covered the sea with a thin layer of fog. As a result, the situation several hundred meters away could no longer be seen clearly. The gurgling water constantly lapped against the sides of the warships. The dragon-shaped flag of the Longdan army camp fluttered in the wind. 500 ships appeared in the sea in a square formation. From afar, the rumbling sound of war drums could be heard. Filei's fleet had arrived. Lord, quickly look. The deputy general pointed into the distance. Su Jiantao squinted his eyes. His gaze pierced through the curtain of snow. About 600 to 700 meters away, he could vaguely see the traces of the Celestial Pole's land warships. They were actually so close. The enemy is about to enter the firing range of our magic crystal cannons. Should we attack now? The deputy general asked. No. Su Jiantao shook his head. Let them get closer. The magic crystal cannons of the Shang army are all passed down from the 3 empires. Most of them are crudely made and their effective firing range is not more than 600 meters. Let them open fire first before we retaliate. Beat the drums and relay the order. The warships on both sides are to move closer to the center and cover the flagship. Don't let the flagship be completely exposed to the enemy's firing range. Yes, Lord. The rumbling sound of the war drums could be heard. The flag bearers on the observation deck of the flagship were also waving their flags to the surroundings. However, the curtain of snow was very thick. The other warships might not be able to see it clearly. They could only coordinate with the sound of the drums. In the fleet of the Shang army, 2,200 warships were spread out on the surface of the sea, stretching for nearly 5 miles. They were approaching the Shang army at high speed, as if they were going to swallow the Shang army whole. Their flagship was a warship wrapped in black iron sheets. There were countless archers on the warship, and it was also equipped with 2 excellent magic crystal cannons. Those were the heavy cannons that the Tianji Empire's army had seized from the Lingdong province. Filei sat on a huge chair with a sharp sword in his hand. He looked into the distance and said, Observer, report back to me how many warships and soldiers they have. Reporting to Vice Commander, I can't see clearly. The snow is too heavy. However, the sound of the drums is very dense. There should be quite a number of soldiers. Furthermore, the flag of the enemy is the flag of the Longdan army camp. They should be Lin Wuyu's main force if they dare to fight us. Lin Wuyu's main force. Filei couldn't help but laugh out loud. Beat the drums, full speed attack. Order the warships on both wings to advance at full speed, outflank their formation and form an encirclement. Today I will make Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing die without a burial. Yes. The drums grew louder. The sailors pushed the oars with all their might, and the ship moved forward quickly. At the same time, the huge cannons in the snow curtain pointed forward and spat out fire. For a moment, purple mushroom clouds rose up from the sea in the distance. Some of the heavy cannons even hit their targets directly, causing the warships of the Longdan army camp to collapse instantly and sink rapidly. Ah, that's it. Full speed ahead attack. Jin Chong raised his spear and stood next to Fillet. He laughed loudly and said, "This time, we will let that coward Qin Yu know how weak his opponent is." A group of soldiers on the flagship raised their weapons and cheered. For a moment, the morale of the Shang army's fleet soared. Boom, boom, boom. In the distance, the warships of the Longdan army camp finally returned fire. In just one volley, a dozen of the Shang army's warships had been hit by the cannons and caught fire. Some even had their ammunition depots destroyed, and the magic crystal cannons detonated, instantly shattering into pieces and sinking. "Move faster." Fillet roared angrily. Jin Chong narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems like we can't catch up, Vice Commander. These cowardly Qin army warships seem to be retreating? They are only using their tail cannons to bombard us." "Damn it, I don't care that much." "Yes." A captaincy at the side said anxiously, "Vice Commander, many of our warships have been hit by the cannons and are sinking. Should we stop and rescue those soldiers who have fallen into the water?" "Stop what?" "Let the warships at the back go and rescue them. The first warships, continue forward and chase after the enemy." "Yes." However, the warships of the Longdan army camp kept a distance of nearly 600 meters, causing the accuracy of the heavy cannons of the Shang army to be extremely poor. On the other hand, the heavy cannons of the Longdan army camp seemed to be possessed by ghosts and gods. Under the continuous bombardment, no less than 100 warships of the Shang army had been hit. The magic crystal cannons were extremely powerful. Even the ironclad warships had their armor melted and sank rapidly. "Damn it!" Fillet suddenly stood up and drew his sword. He said, "I told you to run. I will make sure you have nowhere to run." "Vice Commander, what are you doing?" Jin Chong was shocked. "You guard the flagship. I will be right back." Felix bellowed, and his whole body was covered in demonic flames. He instantly entered the demonic godlike state and flew along the surface of the sea like a bolt of lightning. His long sword buzzed and trembled, and the biting cold sword chi that was filled with demonic chi instantly bombarded the rear of a battleship of the Valiant Dragon Battalion. Immediately, the deck of the battleship collapsed, and 2 medium-sized magic crystal cannons were instantly torn apart. The entire tail of the battleship also disappeared. "Haha, come!" Fillet didn't stop and charged forward. The demonic flames spread out on the surface of the sea. He began to use his domain power to control the direction of the ocean current. Instantly, a 3-meter-tall wave cut off the retreat of the Longdan army camp's fleet. The huge wave swept over and pushed the warships towards the Shang army's fleet. At least 100 warships were in danger. "All of you die." Fillet's eyes glowed fiercely. His entire being was filled with hostility. "Archers, aim and fire. Magic crystal cannons, aim at that person." The nearby Longdan army camp warships turned their cannons. In the next moment, arrows rained down on Fillet's protective aura. What was even worse was that the magic crystal cannons fired more than 10 consecutive shots at Fillet's position. For a moment, purple light soared into the sky and exploded a huge whirlpool on the surface of the sea. However, Fillet wasn't hit. His flying speed was too fast. The sword in his hand carried an awe-inspiring glow as he pounced towards the flagship of the Longdan army camp, the warship with the bronze tiger standing on its bow. "He's here." The people on the flagship were shocked. Only Su Jiantao remained calm. He said, "Archers, shoot him with the demonic heart arrow immediately after I activate the heavenly book." As he spoke, Su Jiantao suddenly raised the sword in his hand. Immediately, the power of heaven and earth flowed, instantly triggering the power of the heavenly book. With a buzzing sound, raging flames spread out. It was a middle-grade heavenly book of the law of fire. However, what Su Jiantao didn't expect was that Fillet's figure suddenly disappeared midway. The next moment he appeared less than 3 meters away. "Commander, be careful." A figure quickly appeared in front of Su Jiantao. It was Nangong Lai, one of the top experts of the Dragon League. He was also one of the experts who maintained the cultivation of the Sanctuary Realm. The sharp sword in Nangong Lai's hand surged with the king's combat flame. He slashed at Filet's long sword head-on. Get lost. Filet's strength was too domineering and vigorous. With a bang, the two swords collided. Nangong Lai's long sword was actually knocked out of his hand, and his body flew out like a cannonball. With a bang-bang-bang sound, he crashed into countless wooden boards and cabins, lying in a mess in a sorry state. If Nangong Lai had half of his cultivation in the past, it would be enough to suppress Filet. Unfortunately, the righteous path had declined, and most of Nangong Lai's cultivation had also disappeared. Faced with the dense arrows around him, Filet suddenly swung his sword, instantly killing several nearby archers. He continued to look fiercely at Su Jiantao, who was wearing the commander's battle robe, and said with a hideous smile, "You are Lin Muyu? I want you dead." Sword formation. Su Jiantao shouted in a low voice, and more than a dozen Longdan army camp experts behind him pounced on him. With flashing swords they went straight for Filet. Although Filet had the absolute advantage in strength, he did not dare to underestimate the sword formation. These sharp swords were tempered with demonic heart stones. Once they were scratched, they would become ordinary people. Then they would be at the mercy of others. With a fall, Filet stepped on the deck and directly fell into the warehouse below the deck. A cold light flashed over his head. The power of the sword formation was indeed not to be underestimated. Boom. With wooden debris flying out, Filet swept his long sword horizontally. Nearly 5 meters of sword chi swept across, and suddenly the abdomens of 3 Longdan army camp experts were cut by the sword chi, and they fell straight down. This Filet was completely invincible. Protect the Lord. Everyone shouted in unison, and the crossbowmen continued to shoot and kill. Roar roar. With a sudden roar, a huge creature ran out of the cabin, and swept its sharp claws that were filled with Shen energy towards Filet. It was the Demon King. When Filet turned around, he was shocked by the appearance of the huge beast in front of him. He hurriedly raised his long sword to protect himself. Pung! A strong vibration came from the blade of the sword. The Demon King's attack actually made Filet retreat several meters, and the devil aura around him gradually weakened. Although the demon god was powerful, there were many experts on this flagship. What are you? Filet laughed sinisterly, and suddenly, a huge purple figure appeared behind him. It was the demon body that belonged to the demon god, and also the source of Filet's power. He had already planned to use the power of the demon body to kill the Demon King. At this moment 2 swoosh swoosh sounds were heard, and 2 figures appeared on the left and right of the Demon King. It was Ice Palm Wu Tong and Fire Fist Zheng Jian. One was ice and one was fire, and the raging flames reverberated and surged, giving off an imposing aura. Su Jiantao's eyes were deep and he lightly waved his arm. Sword shield formation assist the battle. In the middle of the warship, a group of fully armored experts rapidly attacked. Their swords were biting cold, and there was a faint luster on their heavy armors. They were all engraved equipment, and this group of people wasn't easy to deal with. Filet suddenly laughed loudly and his eyes were filled with contempt. Fighting with numbers? Interesting, Grandpa won't play with you guys anymore. He leaped up and the shuttle flew through the curtain of snow. No one could stop this Lionheart demon god. Are you alright, Nangong Lai? Su Jiantao helped Nangong Lai up from the mess. Nangong Lai's face and body had many abrasions, and his palm was bleeding from the impact. He shook his head weakly. I won't die. Commander, quickly command the battle. Okay. Su Jiantao ordered the military doctor to take care of Nangong Lai, and he went to the deck. He looked around at the blazing flames and the scene of countless warships on fire, and said, "Continue to retreat at full speed and don't stop the bombardment." The flag bearer passed down the order, "Tell the soldiers on the burning warships not to resist stubbornly. Everyone board the small boats and retreat and leave the big ships to the Shang army." Yes. Chapter 1140. After close to 2 hours of bombardment and pursuit, under the gloomy dark clouds, the sea was illuminated by the flames of war. The entire battlefront stretched for close to 10 li. Everywhere were burning and sinking warships, as well as soldiers struggling in the sea. The waves surged, dragging lives into the depths of the sea. No matter how tragic the human battle was, the sea still maintained its grace and ruthlessness. Boom! With a precise artillery strike, another Shang army warship in the distance was blown into two. The hull of the ship sank rapidly, and the soldiers' cries for help rose one after another. Retreat at full speed. Su Jintao's arm was injured by the bombardment. Holding onto the injured part, he gazed into the distance and said, "We can't let the enemy fleet chase after us like this. Otherwise we will be devoured. Retreat at full speed. Order the steam-powered warships to increase their speed to the maximum." Yes. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the propellers at the bottom of the ship rotated rapidly, bringing the warships away from the Shang army's bombardment area. It was close to noon. Su Jintao looked around. The remaining Imperial warships were retreating quickly. Many of them were damaged and some were even on fire. Fortunately, most of the soldiers who fell into the water had escaped on small boats. They wouldn't leave any captives for the enemy. What was left behind were only heavily damaged warships and warriors who had died in battle. They are increasing their speed. On the Shang army's flagship, the deputy general had a look of astonishment. What the hell are those Qin army warships? How can they maintain such a high speed even when the wind is against them? They seem to be some machines. Jin Chong said. Filet's eyes were cold. It doesn't matter. These wretched trash won't live for long. Continue to chase after them until all of them are sunk. Yes. Filet deployed close to 1,000 warships to chase after Su Jintao's troops. Although they were getting further and further away, it seemed that Filet had already decided to chase after them to Greenstone Island. In the afternoon the snow was getting heavier and heavier. Filet's warship had also sailed into a region of the sea that he had never entered before. In the distance, a towering rocky island appeared. The island was very small, about the size of a ship. Be careful. An experienced human captaincy said, "There might be submerged reefs in this area. Our battleship is carrying a lot of people, so it'll be troublesome if we hit the reefs." Jin Chong said, "The Qin army's warships passed by here, what are you afraid of? If they can pass through, so can we. Don't be afraid, continue to chase after them." Yes. Just as he finished speaking, a warship about 100 meters away suddenly stopped with a bang, and then began to sink slowly. The soldiers on the ship screamed in fear. Sure enough, they had hit the rocks. Soon the second, third, and fourth battleships appeared. The entire fleet fell into chaos. There were many reefs in the water and no one knew how many there were. "Your Excellency Filet, we can't continue to pursue them. Otherwise I'm afraid we'll all be buried here. This is the sinister plot of the Qin army. They deliberately led us here. Why didn't they hit the reef? Maybe they left some kind of mark? A bunch of good-for-nothings. Why didn't they survey the terrain of the sea in advance?" Captaincy was speechless. "Retreat." Filet looked angry. "Retreat, go back to the port. Take our captured warships and trophies, go back to the port." Yes. After nightfall, dragging the heavily injured warships of the Qin Empire back to the port of Shiping, Filet's troops showed off their strength. No matter what the losses were, at least this time the Qin Empire's army fled. Yu Shu sent the news back to Shiping Prefecture. What? Qin Yu, who had just fallen asleep, sat up in shock. The Qin Empire's fleet was defeated. Yes. The staff officer outside the door said respectfully, "It was a crushing defeat." According to the statistics of the Military Service Office, Filet's troops sank nearly 200 enemy warships, captured 11 warships, 32 magic crystal cannons on the warships, and countless magic crystal shells. In addition, the army collected the corpses and got more than 1,000 corpses of the Qin army. In addition, it is said that most of the corpses have been swept away by the waves. The number of enemies killed in this battle should be more than 70,000. 70,000? 70,000? Qin Yu was stunned. After thinking for a while, he suddenly thought of something and suddenly punched the edge of the bed. He was so sad that he almost cried. "It's over, it's all over. Marshal, are you okay?" The staff officer was shocked. Qin Yu gritted his teeth. "Lin Muyu will really be defeated. This despicable guy is so shameless. My God, how can there be such a trick in the world? Why? Marshal, it's over, it's over. The Shang dynasty is really over. Shiping Prefecture can't be defended anymore. Shiping Prefecture can't be defended anymore. Marshal, why do you say so?" Qin Yu trembled all over and said, "Filet is already on his way back victorious. The first thing he will do when he returns to Shiping Prefecture is to take away my military power. How can we not be defeated by handing over millions of troops to this brute? With Filet's resourcefulness, even 10 Filets can't beat one Lin Muyu. Moreover, there are famous generals like Feng Jixing, Su Jiantao, and Chen Feng. It's over. Xishan province is finished." "Marshal." The staff officer's eyes shone and he said, Since Marshall has concluded that Fillet is no match for Lin Muyu, why not preserve his strength? You should know, these soldiers are the heart of the empire. We can't let Fillet this brute lose them all. How do we preserve them? The staff officer smiled faintly. Among the millions of troops, close to 200,000 belong to the Heaven's End Corps of Scorching Han City. Marshal, while the Marshal's seal is still in your hands, why don't you issue a military order and order Huang Wanxin, the commander of this corps, to lead them out of Shiping City? Just say that a war has broken out between the Fire Element Province and the Forest of No Return with the demonic spirit race. Send Huang Wanxin to the demonic spirit race. This way we can preserve the original strength of the Heaven's End Corps. Moreover, if we are defeated, the responsibility will be on Fillet. It will have nothing to do with you. Good. Qin Yu's eyes lit up. I order you to do this overnight. The army must leave Shiping City before dawn tomorrow. Yes. After a night of hurried marching, the 200,000 troops of the Heaven's End Corps left Shiping City. This also resolved one of Qin Yu's worries. The next morning, Fillet and Jin Chong led the victorious army back to Shiping City. They ordered the commoners to line the streets to welcome them. It was extremely lively. In Shiping Prefecture, when Fillet, Jin Chong, and the others entered the mansion with a smug look on their faces, they saw Qin Yu leading a group of staff officers towards them. He held the marshal's seal in his hand and knelt on one knee. Lord Fillet is mighty. Qin Yu humbly admits defeat and requests to hand over the marshal's seal. From now on, the 800,000 troops of Shiping Prefecture will be under your command. Well said, well said. Fillet was a little carried away. He smiled and said, I did not expect the marshal to willingly give up his position. However, since I am the marshal, you will be my deputy marshal. From now on we will work together and serve Emperor Shang. Yes. Jin Chong frowned. Wait a minute, Marshal. Why is it 800,000 troops? Shouldn't it be 1,000,000? Oh, the day before yesterday the garrison of Huiyuan province fought with the demonic spirit race in the Forest of No Return and suffered a crushing defeat. The demonic spirit race led the demonic spirit race to counterattack Huiyuan province. Therefore, I sent Huang Wanyin to lead 200,000 troops to Huiyuan province to resist the demonic spirit race. After all, there is a large amount of military rations stored in Huiyuan city. We cannot lose them. I see. Jin Chong did not think too much about it. Qin Yu continued, congratulations to the marshal for your victory. I heard that you killed 70,000 of Lin Muyu's troops, but how many troops did you lose? Felix furrowed his brows and said, about 30,000 soldiers and 150 warships were lost. That many? Fillet was a little displeased. How can there be no casualties in a war? Don't forget that we killed 70,000 enemies, and Lin Muyu's troops were originally only half of ours. If every battle is like this, I'm afraid that after 3 to 5 battles, Lin Muyu will have to fight on her own. The marshal is right. Qin Yu bowed his head and congratulated him, but his eyes were full of sorrow. How many 800,000 troops would be left in the hands of a brute like Fillet? No one knew. 2 days later the news reached Changyuan Island. The marshal's tent was filled with laughter. Feng Jixing laughed so hard that he almost cried. Damn, Su Jiantao only lost less than 2,000 men, was wounded and sank 39 warships. But Fillet said that 70,000 men died and 200 warships were sunk. What a joke. I've never seen such a shameless person like Fillet, haha. Wei Chou said, since Fillet has already taken the marshal's seal, it seems that the general attack will be coming soon. Yes. Lin Muyu smiled meaningfully and said, Fillet needs to make a contribution. In 3 days he will definitely gather 1,000,000 troops to attack, and he will destroy Su Jiantao's troops on Greenstone Island. The opportunity we have been waiting for 27 days is finally coming. Tang Zhen, Xiang Yu and the others all became solemn. Please give the order, Lin General. We are ready. Yes. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, we will divide our troops into 5 groups. Su Jiantao will lead the first group to lure the enemy in and bring the enemy's main fleet from Greenstone Island to Changyuan Island. Qian Feng will lead the second group to attack from Jiufeng Island and intercept the enemy's fleet midway. I will lead the third group with 200,000 troops and attack from the front. Feng Jixing will lead the fourth group with 100,000 troops and set off 1 day in advance from the south of Greenstone Island and cut off the enemy's retreat from the southeast. Commander Tang Zhen will lead 50,000 troops and set off in 2 days to the sea area 100 miles east of Jiufeng Island and wait for an opportunity. Yes. Everyone nodded. Only Tang Zhen was a little surprised. Marshal, you asked me to set off in advance. What is my mission? Wait for my order. Once Philae's 800,000 troops leave Shipping Port, you must lead the fleet to bombard Shipping Port in half a day and seize the port. Completely cut off Philae's retreat so that they have nowhere to go. Yes. Tang Jin cupped his hands and nodded. He admired Lin Muyu from the bottom of his heart. It turned out that Lin Muyu had already planned everything. Si Kongyao sat on the side with her beautiful eyes full of charm. She silently watched Lin Muyu arrange the troops and felt indescribable joy in her heart. She really couldn't see through Lin Muyu. She couldn't understand what kind of person Lin Muyu was. How could she be so lovable? All girls wanted a hero in their hearts, and Lin Muyu almost completely met all the requirements. No wonder so many girls in Yanlan City regarded this young and promising marshal as the only man in this life. Chapter 1141. On the 5th of December, Marshal Philae of the Great Shang Empire in the Celestial Pole continent ordered the mobilization of all the troops in Xishan province. With a military order, he mobilized 300,000 garrison troops from the former Blackstone Empire's Qianshan city, totaling 1,000,000 troops to Shiping Prefecture. It was a mighty move, as if it could cut off the flow with a flick of the whip. At the same time, Philae mobilized almost all the large and small warships of the Shang Empire, totaling more than 6,500 ships. Even many heavy fishing boats were installed with cannons and arrow towers, transforming them into temporary warships. Hundreds of thousands of civilian workers were recruited to work day and night. The news reached Changyuan Island. The heavy snow was still falling. On the eastern coast of Changyuan Island, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the others were patrolling on war horses. In the distant sea, warships were practicing their battle formations on the water, and battle cries rose and fell. Philae has almost finished preparing everything. He'll definitely come in half a month, Wei Chou said. I've been waiting for him for a long time, Lin Muyu said with a meaningful smile. Feng Jixing patted the snow on his shoulder and said, There's another piece of news. I don't know if it's true or not, but it should be true. Chen Yu secretly ordered his 200,000 Heaven's End Corps to leave Shiping Prefecture and go to Huyuan Province. This Chen Yu is really scheming. He should have seen through our plan, so he wants to preserve his strength. 200,000 Heaven's End Corps? Lin Muyu frowned. Who's commanding it? Huang Wanxin, an unknown person. The Celestial Empire is full of talented people. We can't underestimate them. Lin Muyu exhaled and asked, Big Brother Feng, is there any news about Chen Yu and our military intelligence? Will he continue to stay in Shiping Prefecture and fight on the sea with Philae, or will he leave? Feng Jixing smiled. Philae left 8,000 old, weak, sick and disabled soldiers to defend Shiping Prefecture and ordered Chen Yu to stay in person. That's good news. Yeah, without Chen Yu, our chances of winning the naval battle are even greater. Lin Muyu pulled the reins of her warhorse and turned to look at Tang Zhen, who was not far behind her. Commander Tang Zhen, come here for a moment. Lin General, what can I do for you? Tang Zhen left his beloved wife, Ling Huyen, stepped forward, cupped his fists and said respectfully, Your subordinate is here. Shiping Prefecture will be guarded by Chen Yu and 8,000 soldiers. Chen Yu is not a simple person. Once you take down Shiping Port, do not act rashly. Wait for the main force of the army to arrive before attacking Shiping City. Do you understand? Yes, this subordinate obeys. Ling Huyen also rode over. With a worried look in her eyes, she said, Your Highness, the next time there's a war, please don't let my husband be the vanguard. He's already over 50 years old and he can't stand too many fierce battles and bumps. Please understand, Your Highness. She often couldn't change the way she addressed Lin Muyu as Your Highness. Lin Muyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ling Hu, in fact, Tang Zhen's mission is the simplest and safest. With Philae's bravery and strategy, he will definitely stake everything on a decisive battle on the sea. The battle on the sea is the most dangerous. On the contrary, Commander Tang Zhen leading a fleet to attack the empty Shiping Port is the safest. If you don't believe me, you can ask Commander Tang Zhen. He is well versed in the art of war and should understand this. Tang Zhen smiled slightly. Ling Hu, Lin General is right. Lin General is taking good care of me by giving me this mission. Of course. You are Shaoxi's uncle and one of the few important ministers of the empire from the era of Qin Jin the Great. I won't let you be cannon fodder. Lin Muyu grinned. Snowflakes swept past and fell on her eyelashes. There was a bit of desolation. She murmured, Let me be the cannon fodder myself. Lin General, you? Tang Zhen was a little stunned. Feng Jixing smiled faintly. Linghu, you don't know. The most dangerous part of this battle is the two baits, Qianfeng and Su Jiantao. The second most dangerous part is the main fleet under Yu's command. After all, Fillet has millions of troops. Even if those heads are pumpkins waiting for us to chop, it won't be easy to chop them off. Moreover, they will counterattack and bite us. Linghu Yan's shoulders trembled. Your Highness, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry, don't say that. Perhaps it was too cold. Lin Muyu shivered. Go back and rest early. It won't take long for the kingdom of Shang's army to replenish their provisions and ammunition. They will arrive soon. Yes. 4 days later, on the 9th of December, the drums of the Shiping harbor thundered. Hundreds of battleships left the harbor one after another. Because it was a windy day from the northwest, all the battleships lowered their sails and used the manpower of the sailors to step on the oars to move forward. More than 60 large battleships were divided into two groups. One group headed for Jiufeng Island while the other group headed for Greenstone Island. On Changyuan Island the news came quickly. What? They divided into two groups. Feng Jixing took a deep breath. He looked at Lin Muyu with cold eyes. Oh no. Why did Fillet, that idiot, split into two groups? This has messed up our entire plan. It must be Qin Yu's idea. As the saying goes, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Qin Yu must have thought so. If it weren't for Qin Yu, Fillet wouldn't have thought of splitting his forces. Lin Muyu stood woodenly on the platform and released the messenger bird she had just obtained. She took a deep breath and didn't continue to speak. The war is imminent. Marshal, say something. Xiangyu was a little anxious. Fillet split his forces. Even so, each group has 500,000 soldiers. It's enough to destroy our forces. We can't underestimate them. Let's split our forces. Qin Yong, the commander of the Iron Blade Army, cupped his fists and said, if they split their forces, we should also split our forces. The Qin Empire has strong ships and powerful cannons. Why should we be afraid? No, we can't split our forces. Feng Jixing raised his hand and said, once we split our forces, our losses will be inestimable. We only have 450,000 soldiers on the sea. If we fight them all, what can we use to attack Xishan province? If we can't land on the land of the celestial pole continent, our expedition will become meaningless. What else can we do? Qin Yong was very anxious. Feng Jixing was helpless. Behind him, Guanxing, Lin Sun, Luoyu and the others were also silent. In the end, everyone's gazes were focused on Lin Muyu. In the end, it still depended on this marshal of the empire to make a decision. Qin Yin wore soft armor and his long robes fluttered in the wind. He looked at Lin Muyu with concern, afraid that everyone would put too much pressure on him and crush his mental state. Lin Muyu muttered to himself for a while and finally raised his head to look at the generals. He said, I have an idea. Once they are about to break away, we will immediately attack. Once they attack, we will immediately escape. We will drag them down like this. Meanwhile, the main fleet will eliminate the other main force of the enemy near Greenstone Island. Once it's eliminated, we will immediately reinforce Qianfeng. There's no need to consider the reserves of the magic crystal cannons. In this battle, we must eliminate the effective forces of the enemy as quickly as possible. Don't take any prisoners in this battle. End the battle quickly. Yes. The eyes of Feng Jixing, Xiangyu and the others lit up. In the most difficult times, Lin Muyu could always think of an appropriate solution. Immediately pass down the order. Beat the drums and prepare for battle. In another half a day, the armies of Su Jiantao and Qianfeng should already be fighting with the enemy. Yes. The situation of the battle was like a raging fire. There was no room for delay. On the East Sea, the densely packed fleet of the Kingdom of Shang came against the wind. 200 li was only half a day for them. After noon, over 3,000 warships arrived at Greenstone Island. Su Jiantao led nearly 1,000 warships to meet the enemy. The heavy snow had stopped. There was even a ray of sunlight that pierced through the clouds and shone on the surface of the sea. Sunlight, the sun is out. Su Jiantao raised his head and basked in the sunlight. He smiled and said, that's great, that's great. The heavy cannons of the Qin Empire had been improved many times by Qin Xiling and the others. Compared to the heavy cannons of the Kingdom of Shang, it had a longer range, higher accuracy, and greater power. All of these were based on a clear vision. If the vision was sufficient, the heavy magic crystal cannons could accurately hit targets within 2,000 meters. The medium magic crystal cannons could also bombard targets within 1,000 meters. Compared to the heavy cannons of the Kingdom of Shang, the advantage was too great. In the distance, the dense mass of warships was speeding over. At this moment there was no wind. The speed of the human-driven ships was somewhat frightening. "They're here." Nangong Lai seemed a little excited. Ice Palm and Fire Fist stood on either side of Su Jiantao, looking indifferently at the enemy in the distance. Just in time. Su Jiantao raised his bamboo binoculars and squinted his eyes. He said, "The enemy's flagship is 4,500 meters away from us. Wait a little longer. Concentrate our firepower on their flagship and destroy Filet's prestige first." "Yes." On the mast, the observer reported loudly, "Commander, the enemy's flagship is 3,000 meters away from us. The nearest ship is 1,700 meters away. Continue to observe." "Yes." After a while, they could even see the flag of the Great Shang hanging on the enemy's flagship. "The enemy's flagship is 1,800 meters away. The nearest ship is 1,050 meters away. Transmit the order, the second echelon of warships has begun." "Yes." The flag bearer quickly sent out the signal. Instantly, the warships on both sides of Su Jiantao moved their warships horizontally and got into a horizontal firing position. Tongues of fire spewed out. The firing from 1,000 meters away was aimed at the enemy's flagship. Before the sound disappeared, a series of shockwaves exploded from afar. The power of the magic crystal cannons was extremely powerful, sweeping up the wooden planks of the warships and wreaking havoc in all directions. With just one shot, the Shang army fleet in the distance was thrown into disarray. Su Jiantao looked straight at the enemy's flagship and said, "The enemy's flagship is 1,700 meters away. All the main cannons of the first echelon, aim at it. Fire at a distance of 1,600 and 1,800 meters. Fire every half a minute. Attack in echelon and adjust the distance and angle automatically. Cover all possible positions of the enemy's flagship and execute the straddling tactic. Destroy Filet's flagship for this, Daddy." "Yes, Commander." Peng peng peng, the sound of the cannons was unceasing. In the distance, mushroom clouds bloomed. The attack of the Qin Empire fleet was truly terrifying. Chapter 1142. Boom boom boom. The shockwaves from the magic crystal cannons shot out hundreds of meters in front and behind them. Flames soared into the sky, and the battleships of the Kingdom of Shang were blasted into smithereens. Many of them sank, and most of them were injured by the shockwaves from the magic crystal cannons. They started to flood, and the Marines were crying for their parents. Jin Chong looked to the front and back with a cold gaze. "Marshal, we are being bombarded from the front and back." What are you afraid of? We are the flagship." Filet sneered. "I don't believe their cannons are that accurate. Continue to advance at full speed. Aim and use our cannons to retaliate." "Yes." The counterattack of the Shang army was very powerful. After all, they had the advantage in numbers. However, the effect of the cannons was not obvious. Other than a few advanced magic crystal cannons, most of the heavy cannons had fallen into the water. They were hundreds of meters away from the enemy's fleet. Boom boom boom. 30 seconds later, another 2 volleys of cannons came from the front and back. This time it was even closer, only 50 meters away. Jin Chong's face turned pale. "Marshal, their cannons seem to be trying to adjust the distance. This won't do. We will definitely be hit. Please change direction immediately." "What are you afraid of? Continue to attack." "Yes." On the flagship, a group of commanders and captaincy-level generals were stunned. The enemy was much more powerful than they had imagined. At this moment they saw the flag of the enemy. There was a big Su character. It was one of the commanders of the Qin Empire, Su Jiantao. It was not the legendary Lin Muyu. Even a Su Jiantao was so powerful. What would happen if Lin Muyu came personally? Boom boom boom. In the distance, the third round of bombardment came from the Longdan army camp. 4 fiery red magic crystal cannons flew through the air and pounced towards the flagship. Oh no! Jin Chong sensed that something was wrong. He quickly activated his devil body Shenqi. Instantly, the devil flame danced around him. "Marshal, we are going to be hit." Filet gritted his teeth and entered his devil god transformation state. Boom! Flames soared into the sky. None of the 4 cannonballs missed. In an instant, Filet's ironclad warship was torn into pieces. The fragments of the warship and the corpses of the soldiers flew into the air. The flames soared hundreds of meters into the air, and waves of air swept out in all directions. In an instant, everyone on the Kingdom of Shang's warship was stunned. The two armies had only engaged in battle for less than 3 minutes, and their flagship was already sunk. Amidst the flames, two people stood on the surface of the sea. They were Fillet and Jinchong. It was easy for the magic crystal cannons to kill, but it was far from enough to kill gods. Even so, the two demon gods, Fillet and Jinchong, were still covered in soot. Martial is fine. Martial is fine. Everyone cheered and jumped for joy. They laughed heartily and celebrated with each other as if they had just won a great battle. Fillet stood on the surface of the sea, with the waves swirling around him as if he was furious. He growled, "Attack. Flatten these bastards of the Qin army. Attack at full speed. Send out the dragon riders and crush them." The war drums thundered and the Shang army fell into a state of frenzy. Although Fillet was fine, the flagship was gone. They could only use other warships to replace the flagship. Moreover, the mortal generals and strategists on the flagship were all gone. 7 commanders and 28 captaincy had sunk into the sea after the 4 cannons. This was a great humiliation, the greatest humiliation in the history of the Shang Empire. Hit. Instant sinking. The enemy's flagship has sunk. The observer was so excited that his voice began to tremble. Fillet is not dead. How could a demon god die so easily? Nangong Lai sneered. Su Jiantao nodded. Yeah, I knew he wouldn't die. Pass down the order, continue to maintain the firing position. Abandon Greenstone Island and retreat to Changyuan Island. Maintain the distance from the enemy. Try to hit them while they can't reach us. Pay attention to the reserve of cannons. At least half of them should be left before we make contact with the main fleet. Yes, Commander. At this moment, a flame exploded on the side. The warship next to Su Jiantao's flagship exploded in the middle. It had been hit by a stray cannon from the enemy. The cannons in the hold of the ship detonated, and the entire ship almost instantly disintegrated from the surface of the sea. No one survived. Buzz buzz buzz. The shockwave from the magic crystal cannons swept over, forcing everyone to raise their arms to cover themselves. The flagship was also pushed dozens of meters away. Layers of waves crashed on the surface of the sea, and the ship completely disappeared. Only fragments and corpses were left on the surface of the sea. Su Jiantao felt a chill from the bottom of his heart, but this was war, and war had always been this cruel. He held onto the railing of the ship and said indifferently, "Pass the signal. Everyone aim at the target within range and fire at will. Maintain a distance of 800 meters. Yes. The warship quickly retreated, only using the heavy cannons at the stern to tangle with the enemy. Meanwhile, Fillet's fleet refused to give up. Even though the enemy's casualties had reached more than 1.5, they still chased after them with a murderous aura. For Fillet, it didn't matter how many people died. What was important was that he had to eliminate the enemy in front of him. Otherwise, when he returned to the celestial pole continent, he would no longer have a place to stand. Even his identity as a demon god wouldn't be able to hide the fact that he had suffered a crushing defeat. At this moment, a dark mass suddenly approached from the distant horizon. "Commander, it's the dragon riders," the observer shouted. "Damn it." Su Jiantao gritted his teeth. "All secondary cannons, stop firing. Adjust the angle and aim at the sky. Fire as soon as the dragon riders arrive. I want to see if the current dragon riders are still invincible." Yes. In the sky, the dragon riders were getting closer and closer. Giant dragons roared and pounced. Fire. On the surface of the sea, a flag signal was set. Instantly, tens of thousands of cannons roared in unison. Countless streaks of fiery light shot into the sky, interweaving into a net of fire. The sounds of clashing and clashing rang out continuously, accompanied by the cries of the dragon riders. In the blink of an eye, dragon riders covered in flames fell from the sky into the sea like giant bats on fire. These were all dragon riders who hadn't comprehended the dragon imperial spiral. However, even more dragon riders swooped down, madly spitting out dragon's breath. They swept through Su Jiantao's fleet. Immediately, miserable cries rang out. Warships were set ablaze one after another. This was the true test. "Don't panic. Put out the fire," Su Jiantao shouted. "Raise your shields and defend against the enemy." Heavy crossbowmen used the dragon hunting crossbow. The dragon hunting crossbows were pushed out from the sides of the warships. Soon large nets shot into the sky. Any giant dragon caught in the net would immediately struggle and fall into the sea. Arrows rained down from the ships, continuously hitting the giant dragons' bodies. However, even more of the Empire's soldiers died under the baptism of dragon flames. In the surroundings, the warships began to catch fire. Su Jintao's shoulders trembled slightly. Hatred surged out from his eyes. At least 100 warships were on fire. After this battle, he didn't know how many of his 50,000 brothers in the Longdan army camp would survive. Evil Dragon Riders. Fire Fist Jing Jian suddenly leaped up from the flagship and threw a punch from afar. Immediately, the energy of the Fire Fist landed on the abdomen of a giant dragon. The giant dragon let out a cry and fell into the water. Nangong Lai Wu Tong, the Beaming King, and the others also left the flagship and killed the dragon riders everywhere. Now they could only rely on these sacred-level experts to resist the dragon riders. Fortunately, the dragon riders weren't willing to stay after burning a large number of warships. They soared into the sky. After all, the dragon-hunting crossbows and magic crystal cannons of the Qin army weren't just for show. The dragon riders had already suffered significant losses. The pursuit went on for 30 miles. The number of warships under Su Jintao's command was decreasing. Nearly a third of them had been lost. He unfolded the map, sweat dripping from his face. As if he was begging for mercy, he murmured, "We've arrived. With these coordinates? Come out quickly." "My lord, come quickly." The deputy commanders at the side were silent. At this point, victory was no longer a question. Night fell. A faint murderous intent permeated the Strait of Changyuan Island. On the second flagship, Jin Chong frowned and said, "Marshal, we've gone deeper and deeper. Now we've lost contact with the 2nd Division. Should we retreat? This despicable Su Jintao just keeps retreating. He has no intention of fighting to the death with us." "What? Is Lord Jin Chong afraid?" Fillet sneered. "Yes, this subordinate is indeed afraid. The Qin people are too cunning. This place makes this subordinate feel that it is a trap that was dug in advance." "A trap at sea? Looks like Lord Jin Chong is scared out of his wits." "I didn't." "Then continue the battle." "Yes." At this moment, a soldier on the observation deck shouted, "Marshal, look to our east. There seems to be traces of the enemy." "What?" Everyone looked over and saw a bright light in the eastern sea region. It was the light of the signal lights on the warships. Soon more and more lights appeared, forming a dense patch. "Oh no, it really is an ambush." At this moment, no matter how conceited Fillet was, his voice was trembling. "Retreat. Spread the sails and retreat at full speed." "We can't do that, Marshal. The Northwest will send us into their embrace." "Damn it, retreat immediately." "Yes." But the order was too late. Cannons roared in the darkness, and a dense patch of magic crystal shells fell from the sky. It looked like a beautiful fireworks display. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, countless warships were hit and light shot into the sky. In the consecutive artillery bombardment, the Kingdom of Shang's fleet had used up all their cannons, but the enemy was still fully loaded. The light illuminated the position of the Shang army's fleet, while the enemy was only floating on the dark sea. Lin Muyu, who was wearing a white cloak of the royal forest, suddenly pulled out the Xianyuan sword, pointed it at the distance and ordered loudly, "Continue the bombardment, attack when they are close, don't let a single ship escape." The sound of drums soared into the sky, mixing with the sound of cannons. Flames soared into the sky, and the enemy was in the light while they were in the dark. All the soldiers of the Shang army fell into despair and panic. They knew that the Qin people hated the massacre of the Celestial Pole continent. The hatred between the two continents couldn't be resolved, and this battle would be their last. Chapter 1143. It's Lin Muyu? It's Lin Muyu's flagship. The soldiers on the observation deck were livid. They looked at the fluttering flag of Lin Muyu's flagship and said, "We are being attacked from both sides, Marshal. What are you panicking for?" Fillet, on the other hand, was calm. He lightly punched the bow of the ship and said, "After all, we have twice their number of warships and troops. Don't panic. Split into battle formations and charge left and right. Break out of the encirclement as quickly as possible." "Yes, Marshal." Fillet looked at Lin Muyu's flagship from afar with eyes full of killing intent. This man he had never met before had humiliated him too much. He was determined to fight him to the death. However, Fillet knew that Lin Muyu had many experts around her. Not to mention the 4 grand sorcerers, there were also Feng Zhanlin, Murong Tianxing, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and other experts. Although they were only in the sanctuary realm, they still had their martial arts techniques. Once they joined forces, even a mid-god like him might not be able to escape unscathed. Therefore he dared not act rashly. Just as the fleet was turning around, a dragon knight suddenly swooped down from the sky and shouted, "Marshal, something bad has happened. There are enemy warships behind us. It's Feng Jixing's fleet. We are surrounded on 3 sides." "What?" Fillet roared. Demonic aura burst out from his body as he flew into the air. He looked at the dense flames and the incessant bombardment in the distance with an ugly expression. He said, "There is always a way out. Our military strength is still above theirs. Pass down my order, all warships are to break out of the encirclement towards the south. Ignore Lin Muyu and Su Jiantao's attacks. Charge south and annihilate Feng Jixing's troops. He doesn't have many soldiers." "Yes, Marshal." Fillet raised his head and said, "Dragon Knight Regiment, attack. Let Feng Jixing have a taste of dragon flame." "Yes, Marshal." Dragon roars could be heard coming from the densely packed warships. The dragons that were hibernating on the deck rose from the ground and charged towards Feng Jixing's battle formation. However, just as the dragons were halfway through their flight, dense flames rose from Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu's battle formation and charged towards the dragon knights in an orderly manner. "What is that?" Jin Chong narrowed his eyes, but his heart was in turmoil. Those were the warriors riding on the fiery red birds. Almost every one of them had a cultivation level of around the Saint Domain, and their strength wasn't inferior to the dragon riders in the slightest. In fact, they even outnumbered them. The cries of the divine bird phoenix continued to ring out in the sky. The dragon riders were being intercepted and killed, but the undying phoenix was even more agile and fast. Streaks of fiery light flashed by, carrying sword chi with them as they slashed at the dragon riders. The dragon battle spiral could withstand the magic crystal cannons, but it could not withstand the attacks of the Xingtian army. Many people died in the blink of an eye. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they raised their dragon spears and dragon swords to resist. In the blink of an eye, the army in the sky tangled together, and there was no clear winner. "Charge!" Fillet stood at the bow of the ship and pointed the long sword in his hand straight forward. He roared, "Charge!" The warships continued to advance, but when they were less than 500 meters away from Feng Jixing's battle formation, there seemed to be a rumbling sound coming from the deep sea. In the blink of an eye, huge whirlpools appeared on the surface of the sea, and the hundreds of warships in front of the Shang army began to spin. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the cold torrents tore the hulls of the ships, and the keels were directly broken. The small whirlpools turned into huge whirlpools, and a huge whirlpool with a radius of 3 miles appeared out of thin air on the surface of the sea. Without a doubt, this was Fuju's masterpiece. In the entire Dragon League, only he had the ability to do so. "It's over." Jin Chong looked at the tragic scene in the distance and said, "Marshal, there's something underwater. We can't charge forward like this." "Bastard." Fillet's voice was a little hoarse. He raised his arm and the demonic god's energy spread out along the surface of the sea, dispersing the whirlpool. But it was too late. The sea was filled with corpses and fragments of warships. It was just a whirlpool, and nearly 20,000 Kingdom of Shang's army were turned into nothingness. Dong dong dong. From the east the war drums thundered. It was Lin Muyu's flagship giving the order to attack. "Lin Muyu." Fillet's eyes were bloodshot and he roared, "Pass down the order, all warships are to charge towards the east, break through Lin Muyu's battle formation and return home." Jin Chong nodded and ordered the flag bearer to pass down the order. But Fillet and Jin Chong both knew that resisting at this moment was like a cornered beast. Today the outcome was already decided. Defeat, a crushing defeat for the Kingdom of Shang's army. One by one the warships sped forward, facing the flagship led by Lin Muyu as well as countless magic crystal cannons. The Shang army's warships were blown to pieces, but the remaining warships continued to charge forward, like moths flying into a flame. This was Fillet's only chance. Only by relying on numbers could he break through the encirclement of the Qin Empire's fleet. In fact, Fillet could escape by himself, but if he didn't bring his army back, he wouldn't have the face to see Emperor Shang. After all he had boasted before. The two armies were getting closer, and they were less than 100 meters away from the Longdan army camp's warship led by Lin Muyu. Clang. Fillet pulled out his sword, and his eyes were full of dancing flames. He shouted, "All the warriors of the Heaven Realm, follow me to kill them. The sea is not enough to stop us, and the pawns of the Eastern Heaven Realm are not enough to destroy us. The glory of the Northern Heaven Realm is not to be desecrated. Kill them and let them know what fear is." On countless warships, the gods from the Northern Heaven Realm pulled out their swords one by one. With a low roar from Philae, everyone jumped off the warship and rushed forward on the waves. Although they couldn't fly, they could at least walk on the water. After all, these people were the best in the Northern Heaven realm, and they were fierce warriors who had been tempered for thousands of years. Under the illumination of the fire, Lin Muyu's handsome face had a touch of excitement. She slowly pulled out the Shenyuan sword and said, "The real battle has finally begun. Feng Zhan Lin, Murong Tianxing, Chang Liang Di Jiang, lead 5,000 Dragon League warriors to attack. Protect the flagship, protect Weiqiu. Don't stop the cannons, don't let any ship pass." "Yes." Feng Zhan Lin raised his saber and laughed loudly. He rushed down the ship with everyone and rushed straight to the densely packed enemy army on the sea. They must stop them from approaching, otherwise the power of these sanctuary experts was enough to destroy the warships. In a naval battle, the warships were the foundation of a foothold, and they must not lose too much. In the blink of an eye, the sea was full of colorful attacks. The battle of the practitioners set off waves on the surface of the sea. Lin Muyu held the Shenyuan sword in her hand and jumped to the sea about 50 meters in front of the flagship. With a gentle swing of the long sword and the fluttering of the cloak, her whole person gave off a feeling of a deep abyss and a high mountain. The awe-inspiring demeanor of a famous general stunned Situ Sen, Situ Shui and the others. They were also rare generals of the empire, but they did not have the outstanding aura of Lin Muyu. Buzz, Qin Yin's Donghua sword was trembling slightly, and Tang Xiaoxi had also replaced her hand with the Zhu Rong holy fire sword that Lin Muyu had given her. The two girls guarded Weiqiu on both sides. At this moment, Weiqiu was the real protagonist of the battle. The bowstring was drawn. Weiqiu's clear eyes stared into the distance, and he suddenly released an arrow. Immediately, the sun-shooting arrow turned into a beam of light and rushed into the distance. On the sea, a Holy King expert who was fighting with Feng Zhan Lin let out a whimper. A huge hole was shot through his chest, and he knelt straight on the sea, sinking in the blink of an eye. "Good brat." Feng Zhan Lin turned his head to look at Weiqiu in shock. Although this brat was from the mortal realm, with the shooting sun bow in his hand, he was able to shoot a target from 1,000 meters away. His eyesight and arm strength were truly incomparable. In the blink of an eye, Weiqiu shot more than 10 arrows in a row, and almost every arrow killed a Holy Realm expert. This quickly attracted the attention of the Shang army. "That lad." Philae evaporated a Dragon League expert with one palm. With a livid face he said, "Jin Chong, come with me. Let's kill that lad who shot the arrow and destroy their flagship warship." "Yes, my lord." Not only Jin Chong but dozens of experts from the Northern Heaven realm also followed him. Everyone's speed was fast and fierce, especially Philae. His iron sword was full of demonic flames and no one could resist him. Along the way he attacked and killed nearly 2 digits of Dragon League experts before approaching the flagship. In front of him there was a person floating on the water. It was Lin Muyu, who wore the 5-star rank of the Imperial Marshal. "It's Lin Muyu?" Jin Chong shouted. "Kill him." Philae laughed and suddenly sped up. Like a ghost, he stepped on the waves and dashed forward in a zigzag trajectory. Suddenly he launched an attack from the flank. The iron sword was covered in flames. Lin Muyu didn't expect the opponent to be so fast. After all, the disparity in strength was too great. Buzz. The golden gourd wall penetrated his body and blocked with the Shenyuan sword. Bam. A loud thud could be heard. Felix's brazen sword strike had actually caused Lin Muyu to be pushed back nearly 10 meters. Her arms were numb and she looked to be in a sorry state. "You're just SOSO." Felix laughed heartily and suddenly opened his palm. Instantly, the power of his domain swept across the surface of the sea in front of him. The demonic flames turned into sharp arrows that shot towards Lin Muyu. "Turn into ashes for this, daddy." However, Lin Muyu suddenly disappeared from the surface of the sea. It was not because she was moving fast but because she had sunk into the sea. The waves under the water surged with faint starlight. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the side, and the Shenyuan sword slashed with the energy of the purple sun. It was the purple sun falling from the star technique. Under the illumination of the sun, Lin Muyu's clear eyes were filled with determination. This gaze actually caused Felix's heart to turn cold, and his speed to slow down. Bam! The shockwave rippled on the surface of the sea. Felix blocked Lin Muyu's attack without moving an inch, while Lin Muyu was sent flying dozens of meters back. She was already panting heavily. Swoosh, 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 the sun-shooting arrow flew past like lightning. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 experts from the Northern Heaven realm had already fallen in front of the flagship like meteors. Only Jin Chong roared angrily with his long spear in hand, and thrust it towards Wei Chou with a vast divine power. However, the two beautiful girls didn't let Jin Chong's attack go. The Dong Hua sword and Zhu Rong's sacred fire sword crossed to block, and the flames and holy light rose. Bam! With the combined strength of Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, Jin Chong's spear was shaken off. In fact, cracks even appeared on the handle of the spear and it shattered in the air. How is this possible? Jin Chong was shocked. Under the impact of the awe-inspiring air waves, Wei Chou narrowed his tiger-like eyes and quickly drew his longbow. He aimed at Jin Chong's heart and shot an arrow. Puff! Purple demonic blood splashed down from the sky. Jin Chong's eyes widened. It was hard to imagine that he would be shot to death. Before his body landed on the ground, there were roars of demonic creatures around him. Streams of demonic aura dissipated and his demonic body disappeared at this moment. At the same time, his body emitted a golden light that flowed and dispersed like sand. In the blink of an eye, this inferior demon god had returned to ashes and dust to dust. A demon god was nothing more than this. Chapter 1144. Felix could naturally feel Jin Chong's death. Although he had the absolute upper hand in his battle with Lin Muyu, the moment that Brat on the flagship drew his bow, Felix's heart trembled. Before Wei Chou could draw his bow, he had already stepped on the ripple wave, and with a poochie sound, he broke through the void and retreated a few hundred meters. He didn't dare to continue fighting. Even though he was a mid-god, he was no match for Lin Muyu's meticulous planning. Retreat! Retreat! Fillet loudly ordered, "Pass down my order, everyone retreat. Defend against their attack with an iron bucket formation. The Qin fleet must have a limited supply of cannons. They can't possibly keep up the bombardment. When they run out of cannons, it will be time for us to counterattack." This roar allowed the shaken Shang army soldiers to find a trace of comfort. At the very least, the marshal's flag was still there. "They are defending with an iron bucket formation," Situ Sen said with a frown. "Perhaps Fillet is right. We can't run out of cannons here." Lin Muyu said, "There is still a fierce battle waiting for us at Jiufeng Island. We must conserve our cannons. Pass down my order to stop the bombardment. The Gong Gong Navy will begin their attack. When they are in a mess, approach them, hook their warships, seize them and kill them." Yes. The entire surface of the sea was ablaze. Wreckages of warships were burning. Less than half of the 3,000 warships that Fillet had brought with him were left. More than 1,000 warships were huddled together on the surface of the sea, defending themselves like an enormous tortoise shell. Great Qin's warships slowly approached, getting closer and closer. They were less than 100 meters away. On the Iron Bucket Formation warships, the Shang army soldiers were trembling. Most of them were new recruits. This was their first battle, but they didn't expect that they would be greeted with death. The native cannons and magic crystal cannons on the Shang army's warships had long been exhausted. At this moment, they could only rely on arrows and stone ballistae to bombard the enemy. However, they were completely useless against the sturdy warships. On the contrary, under Situ Sen's command, some people holding black iron pipes appeared on the warships of the Great Qin Empire. They struck the air and instantly the Shang soldiers fell like wheat being reaped. That's right, it was the armor-piercing bow that Feng Jixing mentioned. It was also the submachine gun in Lin Muyu's heart. What the hell is that? Fillet frowned as he looked into the distance. A series of bullets were fired at him, but they were all deflected by the god power strong wall in front of him. "Keep shooting arrows and use the iron hooks to intercept them. Don't let them get close," some high-ranking officers ordered loudly. They were familiar with naval warfare, but they weren't the commanders of this battle. Beside Fillet, Captain C, who was wearing a red robe, said in a low voice, "Marshal, we can't keep defending. We need to think of a way to charge out. In this subordinate's opinion, why don't we give the order to raise the sails? The night wind is strong, and we can ram through Feng Jixing's troops in the southeast and force our way out. Once we make contact with the Second Corps, we can make a comeback." Fillet turned to look at him and said, "That's a good idea. What's your name?" "This subordinate is called O." Before he could finish his sentence, a soft tongue suddenly flew out from the side of the sea and wrapped around Captain C's head. It forcefully dragged him into the sea. Instantly, the sea churned and there were even wild beasts roaring. It was as if a group of vicious sea beasts was having a meal. Blood instantly dyed the surface of the sea red. "What the hell is this?" Fillet watched as his subordinate was killed, but he didn't lend a helping hand. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, but he was scared out of his wits. At this moment, Fillet was scared out of his wits. A group of Shang army soldiers shot arrows into the water, but by the time the arrows reached the water, the horseshoe crab people had already disappeared. Instead, thumping sounds came from the bottom of the ship. Everyone's hair stood on end. One of the staff officers said, "What's that sound? It seems like there's something at the bottom of the ship." Fillet frowned and said, "What kind of person is Lin Muyu? How can he use these monsters as an army? This person, is he even human?" No one could answer this question of his. But not far away, a warship was already flooded. The water had entered the cabin, and it would sink in 3 to 5 minutes. The soldiers on the ship were wailing and fighting over the driftwood to save their lives. One after another, more and more warships were sunk. The morale of the army was in chaos and it had completely collapsed. What's worse was that the warships of the Qin Empire all approached, hooking the sides of the ships and forcing them to approach. The Qin soldiers with broadswords jumped onto the warships and began slaughtering. At the bottom of the sea, the Gong Gong Navy climbed up along the sides of the ships, waving their sharp blades and rushing into the crowd. After a round of slaughter, the defeat of the Shang army was certain. In the air, the Dragon Knights circled around. One of the Dragon Knights said with an ashen face, "Marshal, we can't get out of here. Hurry and leave with the Dragon Knights, as many as you can. Otherwise, we'll all die here, Marshal." "Let's go." Scared out of his wits, Fillet leaped into the clouds and shouted, "All dragon riders, follow me to the Second Corps and find reinforcements to save the situation." On the sea, a large group of Shang army soldiers were dumbfounded, and they all knelt down and begged for help. "Marshal, don't leave us, Marshal." However, what greeted them was only death. Before the war, Lin Muyu's order was not to keep any captives. Food and warships were scarce resources, and keeping captives would only consume their own resources, which was not a wise move. But now, the result had been determined, and all that was left was the process of slaughter. Nearly 2 hours later, over a big half of the Shang army's warships had been seized, and the remaining hundreds were powerless to resist. "Pass my order." The Xinyuan sword was stained with blood. Lin Muyu sat tiredly on the corner of the deck of the flagship and said, "Leave Si Kongyao's troops to continue cleaning the battlefield. The rest of the fleet will follow the flagship to the battlefield of Jiufeng Island. Speed is the most important thing in war. Go to the battlefield as soon as possible." "Yes, Marshal." The bugle sounded, and Lin Muyu's flagship was the first to turn around and rush to the northeast, followed by Feng Jixing's fleet. Undercurrents surged under the water and countless Gong Gong Navy troops moved along with the fleet. In the air, the cries of Phoenix could be heard. Although Xing Tian's army had suffered a great loss, they still had the power. Changyuan Island was less than 40 miles away from Jiufeng Island, and could be reached in 2 hours with the wind. "Lord, drink some water." Wei Chou kneeled on one knee and handed over a glass of water, which was faintly stained with blood. Lin Muyu thanked him and drank up the glass. As he said, the glass had a faint scent of blood. After a fierce battle, no pure water could be found anymore. Blood and corpses were everywhere. There were 300 people on the flagship, but by now only 224 were left. This was war and death was a common thing. "Lulu, come out." Lin Muyu gave a deep growl. Instantly, a buzzing noise came into his ears. A scout bee landed on his wrist and quickly transformed into Lulu's silhouette. "Brother, I'm here. Check the situation of Qianfeng's battle near Jiufeng Island. I want to see it now." "Okay." Lulu's silhouette disappeared and was replaced by the dark scene of artillery bombardment. The 50,000 National Fleet commanded by Qianfeng had been surrounded by the enemy and suffered heavy losses. There were only a few warships left, and the 50,000 people in the National Fleet would most likely be lost. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a pain in his heart. Although Qianfeng was a surrendered general, he was still a rare loyal and brave general. "Adjust the angle of the fleet to the south by 15 degrees. Lin Muyu said indifferently. Wei Chou frowned and said, "Lord, we are now moving at full speed. The flagship is fast and has already left a lot of the fleet behind us. Only less than 100 fast ships can keep up with our speed. If we change the angle, I'm afraid we will directly rush into the enemy fleet. Moreover, the best way is to outflank them from 3 sides. We need to slow down and wait for the 2 corps led by General Feng and Xiangyu to outflank them from the left and right before we attack. It's too late. I can't let Qianfeng die." Lin Muyu shook her head and said, Let's rush into the enemy fleet. We'll disrupt their battle formation first, then let General Feng and Jianghu attack from the left and right. The result will be the same. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Lin Muyu stood up again, looked at the dark sea and said, "Where's Candle Dragon?" In the water, a silhouette flew over. Candle Dragon cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Lord. What's your order?" "Lead the Gong Gong Navy to reinforce Chen Feng's fleet, no matter the cost." "Yes." Lin Muyu looked at the sky and said, "Situ Sen Situ Shui." "Yes." Dragon Knight and Dragon Knight answered together. "You lead our Dragon Knights. I'll give you the Xingtian Heavenly Army as well, along with 25 giant flying snakes. Reinforce Chen Feng's army as fast as possible. No formation is required. This time we just want to attack with speed and catch Filet's second corps unprepared." "Yes." Lin Muyu hesitated briefly and said, "Forget it, I'll go with you." Summoning a Catasaurus, he leaped onto the dragon's back and said, "Shaoyin, I'll leave the main fleet to you. Consult General Feng of the Wei Army." Qin Yin's eyes were as clear as water. "You have to be careful too." "Yes, I'm going." Streaks of light flew across the sky. Added with the surging sea water, the two armies headed straight for Eternal Wind Island. Acatosaurus's sharp claws slowly spread out in the clouds. Its flying speed was extremely fast, faster than all the Xingtian Heavenly Army and Dragon Knights. It immediately arrived at the main battlefield 10 li south of Eternal Wind Island. The densely packed fleet of the Kingdom of Shang had already surrounded Chen Feng's troops. Chen Feng's close to 1,000 battleships were left with less than half, but they were still firing back with all their might. "Dragon flames." Lin Muyu gave the order. Acatosaurus immediately opened its mouth and spat out a scorching dragon breath. It ignited dozens of battleships on the surface of the sea. The power of the laws disappeared and the gods fell. However, Acatosaurus was a dragon. Its power was not affected at all. All of its dragon power came from its bloodline. Flip. Lin Muyu continued to give the order. Acatosaurus then flipped over and faced the sea with its back. Lin Muyu drew her long sword and activated her profound energy. A sword aura streaked across the sea and cut 7 battleships in half. On the surface of the sea, several figures flew over. They were the sanctuary realm experts of the Kingdom of Shang's army. "Meet them." Lin Muyu gave the order, "Armor transformation." Immediately, Acatosaurus's body began to disintegrate, turning into a majestic dragon armor that attached itself to its owner. A pair of red dragon wings fluttered in the wind. Lin Muyu brandished her sharp sword and swept forward like a whirlwind. The divine sword was sharp. Along the way, blood splattered everywhere. More than 10 Sanctuary Realm experts were slaughtered by Lin Muyu without any ability to retaliate. Chapter 1145. Lin General, that's Lin General. In the distance, Chen Feng, who was surrounded on the Imperial warship, couldn't help but be overjoyed. He raised his sword and shouted, "Warriors, Marshal Lin has come to reinforce us. The battle on the main battlefield is over. The main army will be here soon. Hold on, it's time to counterattack." The soldiers who had lost all hope immediately rejoiced. The warships were filled with people knocking bows and arrows and carrying heavy magic crystal cannons. Chen Feng's troops had suffered heavy losses. Many warships were severely damaged and some were even unable to fire back. Corpses were piled up in the corners of the deck. They couldn't let the dead be eaten by the fishes, so they had to bring the corpses to the land to be buried. This was a sign of respect for the dead. On the surface of the sea, fragments of the warships floated everywhere. Many soldiers were crying for help in the water, but what greeted them were the powerful crossbows and arrows of the Shang Empire. Arrows rained down like rain, dyeing the surface of the sea red in the blink of an eye. Lin Muyu was only one person. How many people could she save? In the sky, the roars of dragons could be heard. The Dragon Knights had arrived. Over 100 Dragon Knights led by Situ Sen and Situ Shui descended from the sky. They wantonly breathed dragon flames and instantly dyed the sky red. With the arrival of the Xingtian Heavenly Army, the Shang army fleet on the southwest side fell into chaos. Not long after, ripples surged on the surface of the sea. Numerous Gong Gong Navy soldiers drilled out of the water, wielding long halberds, bows and swords. Wet sharp arrows danced in the air, shooting the soldiers on the warships into the water. More Gong Gong Navy soldiers began to attack the bottom of the enemy's warships. They were equipped with the same white diamond weapons, which could easily break the iron armor at the bottom of the warships. The Shang army fleet began to panic. In addition to the army of Huamen that kept appearing on the surface of the water, these frightening things were sucking people down from the warships. Moreover, they were very ugly, so ugly that it was a little shocking. This had already cast a deep shadow in the hearts of many Shang army soldiers. Lin Muyu, who was wearing the dragon armor, slashed his way through the water surface and landed on the deck of Qianfeng's flagship. Behind him, the Shang army's warships were sinking. Lin Muyu alone had destroyed nearly 20 warships. At this time, he had also consumed a large amount of Do Qi and needed to rest. After all, he was now a mortal and no longer an omnipotent god. Qianfeng led a group of subordinates and knelt down. "Greetings, Marshal. Dispense with the formalities. Get up and continue fighting." Lin Muyu sat on the side of the ship and looked at the fire in the distance. "Marshal Qianfeng, you need to hold on a little longer. Our main battleships will arrive in about an hour." "Yes, I understand." Qianfeng's face was covered with soot from the magic crystal cannons. He asked with bright eyes, "Marshal, what's the situation on Changyuan Island?" "Annihilated." Lin Muyu smiled faintly. Fillet escaped with the dragon riders, but Jin Chong didn't manage to escape. He was shot and killed by Wei Chou. Aha, he can even shoot a demon god dead. Duke Wei is really something. Qianfeng and Wei Chou had fought for many years, and he knew Wei Chou's character and ability very well. When he heard that Wei Chou had killed a demon god, he was happy from the bottom of his heart. Lin Muyu said meaningfully, "Marshal Qianfeng, you led a mere 50,000 men here and stalled nearly 500,000 enemy troops. Your contribution far exceeds that of Wei Chou. I thank you on behalf of the Qin Empire." "You're welcome." Qianfeng suddenly turned around and looked at the sky. He frowned and said, "What a familiar aura. It's my army, isn't it?" "Yes." Lin Muyu smiled and said, "I've ordered the giant flying snake troops to come and help. Let the enemy have a taste of the giant flying snakes before the main fleet of the Empire arrives." "Good, very good." It didn't take long before huge creatures appeared in the sky. They flew in the sky like mountains, their bodies flashing with blue lightning energy. They were the giant flying snakes that they hadn't seen for a long time. There were a total of 25 giant flying snakes moving slowly. Although they couldn't compare to the flying speed of the Xingtian Heavenly Army, they were much faster than the speed of the ships. "What is that?" The people on the Shang army warships were in chaos. The commander in charge of the fleet, the former general of the Blackstone Empire, Shi Yuqiu, squinted at the sky and said, "Ballistae and crossbowmen, get ready. No matter what comes, shoot them down as soon as they enter the firing range." "Yes, Commander." The crossbowmen all widened their eyes as they looked at the giant flying snake in the distance. At the same time, they could also see the flying creatures circling around the giant flying snake. Those were the winged people, the troops responsible for protecting the giant flying snake from the dragon knights. However, Lin Muyu's meticulous thinking was far too far-fetched. Fillet hadn't led the dragon knights here at all. He had long since escaped without a trace. The tragedy of the naval battle at Changyuan Island had completely frightened this demon god out of his wits. Roar, roar, roar. The giant flying snake didn't stop roaring. It opened its mouth and began to suck in everything below it. Instantly, the seawater surged, and water splashed into the snake's mouth and evaporated from its back. For a moment, a huge wave rose up, and the Shang army warships couldn't escape in time. The giant flying snake's force field storm was so powerful that by the time it got close to the warships, the Shang army's ballistae and crossbows had already become decorations. The crossbow bolts had already changed directions in the air, so they couldn't cause any damage. As for the magic crystal cannons, they had long since used up their shells, and the giant flying snake was unstoppable. "It's coming. Be careful." The faces of the people on the warships were pale, and they were all at a loss. Soon, the warships flew up one by one, and were swept into the giant flying snake's force field along with the waves. Even the people on the warships were torn to pieces. With 25 giant flying snakes wreaking havoc together, it was as if doomsday had arrived. Looking at the scene of the warships falling apart in the distance, Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel glad that she had made the decision to spare the descendants of the demon race. It was as if the heavens had decreed that the gods would become mortals, and after becoming mortals, the giant flying snake became even more like a god on the battlefield, invincible. Even the sanctuary realm experts who tried to attack the giant flying snake were pulled into the force field, and in the blink of an eye, they were crushed into a pile of minced meat. It was a tragic sight. The giant flying snake indeed shouldn't exist in the human world. Lin Muyu said. Qianfeng smiled and said, the giant flying snake comes from the hive, and the hive's energy source comes from an alternate dimension. That's a world with advanced technology. Just as you said, Lin General, the giant flying snake and the armor demons don't belong to this world. Now that they are part of our army, it's our great fortune, and the enemy's great misfortune. That's right. Lin Muyu nodded and said, pass down the order, let the giant flying snake move to the east, block the retreat of the Shang army, and form a pincer attack with our main fleet coming from the west. Yes, your subordinate obeys. At the end of the day, the giant flying snake really listened to Qianfeng, not Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu was merely a temporary commander. When Qianfeng was around, the demons would submit to the female Empress Qinin. If Qianfeng wasn't around, the demons would definitely rebel. Whether it was the advanced demons, the armor demons, the giant flying snake, the winged people, or the Hui Navy, they all needed Qianfeng to suppress them. These were a group of desperados. From this, it could be seen that Qianfeng was too important to the Qin Empire. And Qianfeng was grateful to Lin Muyu. From being an opponent to a close friend, they appreciated each other, and it was this friendship that created the prosperity of the Qin Empire today. Qianfeng didn't have many magic crystal cannons left, and even the sound of the cannons couldn't be heard. After half a minute, a muffled sound was heard. Although the giant flying snake was wreaking havoc, there were too few of them. The enemy still had more than 2,000 main warships surrounding Qianfeng. They kept approaching and attacked Qianfeng's warships with bows and stone cannons. At this time it was almost dawn. Bang! The loud sound of cannons from the west meant that the main force of the Qin Empire's fleet had arrived. Then the sound of cannon fire became continuous. Under the illumination of the white light in the distance, the densely packed Imperial fleet appeared on the surface of the sea. The purple light from the explosions of the magic crystal cannons bloomed like flowers of death on the surface of the sea. The reinforcements are here. All the people under Qianfeng laughed, and the morale of the army was boosted. The feeling of survival from a desperate situation made their hearts feel as if they were about to jump out of their chests. In the air, Lin Muyu's Shen Yuan sword was covered with blood. The dragon armor wings behind him suddenly disappeared, and he fell on the deck powerlessly. He had consumed a lot of energy and was already very weak. Come on. Qianfeng ordered, help the marshal into the cabin to rest and get a bowl of meat soup for him. No need. Lin Muyu waved his hand and said, I'll stay here and watch the army win. I won't go anywhere. As he said, he slowly sat on the wet and cold deck under the ship's railing. A soldier of the spiritual fire department came out of the cabin and brought 10,000 bowls of fragrant soup. He said, this is the potato and deer meat soup that is not much left. Please enjoy, Marshal. Thank you. Lin Muyu took it and drank a mouthful. Immediately, a warm current flowed from his throat to his stomach, and he felt much better. He exchanged the remaining half of the bowl of soup with the elder of the spiritual fire division and said with a smile, I'm not drinking anymore. You can have the rest. It seemed that everyone had not eaten for a long time. From the beginning of the battle last night until now, there was no time to eat at all. The old man of the spiritual fire department's throat twitched when he smelled the soup. He must be hungry. Lin Muyu glanced at Qianfeng and said, tell the spiritual fire department to cook. Everyone has a bowl of hot soup. Drink while fighting. Qianfeng was pleased. Yes, sir. The flag bearer passed the order, and the spiritual fire department of each ship began to get busy. In the blink of an eye, the sky was already bright. In the distance, Qin Yin, Feng Jixing, and Xiang Yu's battleships had begun to outflank Filet's Second Legion. The heavy cannons were unleashed and the outcome was set. The bombardment and fierce battle continued until noon. The last 1,000 battleships of the Shang army actually raised their white flags in unison. They had decided to surrender. Chapter 1146. Stop the attack. The strong smell of blood filled their nostrils as they raised their arms and roared. The flag bearer of Qianfeng's flagship quickly passed down the order, and the sound of cannons became less and less frequent. What's wrong, Marshal? Qianfeng narrowed his eyes and said, didn't we decide not to keep any captives? That was then and this is now. Lin Muyu said, the overall situation is uncertain, and keeping captives is a burden. But now that the overall situation has been set, bring these captives back to the celestial pole continent, give them 3 months' worth of rations and military expenses, and then give them grain seeds and let them go home to farm. This way, They can spread the wisdom of the Qin Empire to the entire celestial pole continent. What a good deal. But, Qianfeng was somewhat hesitant and said, in the naval battle of Changyuan Island, we almost annihilated nearly 500,000 Shang army soldiers. Our reputation for killing has already spread. Isn't it futile to accept them now? Don't worry, the Shang army near Changyuan Island has already been wiped out. No one knows that we slaughtered 500,000 people. A hint of killing intent flashed in Lin Muyu's eyes as she said, after entering Shiping City, immediately put up a notice to pacify the people. Tell the world that the Shang army captives near Changyuan Island have been left on Changyuan Island because of the shortage of warships. They will be sent by fishing boats to the Shattered Tripod Realm to serve as farm laborers. Qianfeng smiled slightly and said, Marshall is wise. To attack the world, attack the heart. Marshall is indeed an expert. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, Marshall, why tease me? Do you think I, Lin Muyu, want to be such a scheming person who stirs up the storm? But if I don't do it, won't someone else have to suffer? Qianfeng knew that she was talking about Qin Yin. He smiled and cupped his fists saying, Qianfeng swears loyalty to Marshall and Her Highness Yin in this life. Even if I die in battle, I will never regret it. Thank you. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder lightly and said, but now is not the time for you to climb a mountain of swords and dive into a sea of flames. Now is the time for you to make contributions. Take the captives and the warships. Yes. A speedboat sped away, slowly docking at the edge of the Shang army's flagship. Lin Muyu and Qianfeng leaped onto the flagship. Both of them were wearing the armor of the Qin Empire, and their military insignias were flashing, making them easy to recognize. The commander of the fleet, Shi Yuqiu, had also seen some generals of the Qin Empire before. The one with 2 golden stars was Captain C, and the one with 3 stars was the commander. Shi Yuqiu had seen 2 stars, but he had never seen a higher one. This time 2 people came, one with 3 stars and the other with 5 stars. One could imagine their status in the army. Surrendering General. Shi Yuqiu greets the 2 sirs. Shi Yuqiu knelt down, and the commanders, deputy commanders, captaincy and Kiliarchs behind him also knelt down. Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, Commander Shi, please rise. I am Great Qin's Lin Muyu. I represent the Qin Empire to accept your surrender. Now please put down your weapons. Yes. Shi Yuqiu put down his sword and put it on the deck in front of Lin Muyu's feet. With a bit of doubt on his face he asked, how does the marshal plan to deal with us? Don't worry. Since I have accepted you as captives, I won't kill you. After you go ashore, disband your army. I will give you food, travel expenses, and grain seeds. You can go back to your hometown to reunite with your families. Really? Thank you, Marshal. Thank you, Marshal. Shi Yuqiu kowtowed again and again. Lin Muyu nodded and didn't say anything more. She just ordered the sergeants to raise the purple flag of the Qin Empire on the flagship. The fierce battle on the East Sea finally ended after nearly a day and a night. In the end, the Qin Empire won completely. The warships carrying the captives sailed eastward with the wind and arrived at the shipping port before dark. At this time, the flag of the Qin Empire was flying over the shipping port. The town of Tang had lived up to expectations and had taken the city. One by one, the warships docked at the port. At the same time, the magic crystal cannons, shells, and warhorses were transferred to the shore. In the evening, a celebratory dinner was held in the residence of the shipping port. However, it wasn't really a celebration. It was more like reorganizing the 3 armies. Everyone looked gloomy and didn't feel the joy of a wild victory. The Empress Qin Yin sat at the head of the table, while Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi sat on both sides. Feng Jixing, Qianfeng, and the others sat next to them. Everyone was waiting for the staff officer to finish the statistics. Zhang Wei tore off a chicken leg and ate it as a sign of respect. On the other hand, Wei Chou smiled faintly. He rested his chin on his hand and seemed to be in a daze. The lights in the residence were a little dim. Jianghu, Qin Xiaoli, Qin Yong, Beili Tsang, and the other generals looked at Qin Yin and Lin Muyu with burning eyes. The atmosphere of this celebratory dinner was a little too heavy. Not long after, Guanxing walked into the hall with a list in his hand and said respectfully, Your Highness, the statistics are out. Read it, Qin Yin said. Yes. Guanxing looked at the list and said, In this battle, our army lost a total of 1,844 warships, more than 84,700 soldiers, 52,100 missing, and about 70,000 injured. More than 80% of the magic crystal cannons were used up, and more than 100,000 warhorses were lost. In addition, nearly half of our rations and equipment were lost. After distributing the Jianghu coins to the captives, we were left with less than 30%. The combat strength of the entire army was greatly depleted. All the generals were stunned. Only now did they know why Qin Yin and Lin Muyu didn't have any smiles on their faces. Although the fierce battle at the East Sea was considered a great victory, the losses were far beyond anyone's imagination. More than 50,000 people are missing, which means that 130,000 people died in battle. Lin Muyu's eyes were somewhat dull as she said, in addition to the 70,000 injured, only half of our 450,000 soldiers can fight in the battle at the East Sea. Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, Marshal, the most important thing is that our rations have been exhausted. There is no food in this shipping port. When the enemy retreated, they burned the granary. We don't even know where the rations for tomorrow's noon are. After all, we still have 300,000 soldiers, and the daily rations are an extremely terrifying number. General Ding Shi, as the commander of the supply department, what do you have to say? Ding Shi frowned and said, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. This is all I have on hand. Most of the warships are occupied by warhorses, weapons, armors, and heavy artillery. I can't do anything about it. Chu Yao said, also there is a serious shortage of medicine. Half of the warships that were responsible for transporting medicine were sunk by Fillet when he broke out of the encirclement. Now there are more than 70,000 wounded soldiers in need of medical treatment. Bleeding control, anti-inflammatory medicine, and other medicines are extremely insufficient. Xiangyu said, Lin General, shipping port is only a port. It is not a place to stay for long. We must quickly capture a large city as a foundation, otherwise, we will be trapped here. Although the Shang army was routed at sea, their land army didn't suffer the slightest loss. Once they attack, we will be caught off guard. Lin Muyu only felt an incomparably big headache. She said, one by one, let's talk about the rations first. How much gold coins have we brought? Quickly send people to the nearby areas to purchase food and livestock. I'm afraid this is just a drop in the bucket. Tang Xiaoxi said, Mu Qinyu is such a powerful person. He has already ordered to fortify the walls and clear the fields. The civilians near shipping port will not have any food, unless we are like Gong Shangming and Bai Minghuan, capturing and eating people. The Qin army will never eat people. Lin Muyu looked at Si Kongyao with pleading eyes. She said, Yao, think of a way. Si Kongyao pursed her red lips. You finally thought of me? I do have a way, but it depends on whether you want to use it or not. Yes, tell me. Shipping City, such a huge city, one of the famous cities in the celestial pole continent. Right now there are only Qinyu's 10,000 old, weak and sick soldiers defending it. Once we take Shipping City, will we have to worry about food? Will Qinyu give Shipping City to us so easily? Lin Muyu was a little suspicious. She frowned and said, if I were Qinyu, I would burn down Shipping City and not leave it for us. I think Qinyu has already done that, Qinin said. Situ Sin raised his eyebrows and said, if I were the marshal, I would not waste time chatting here. Instead, I would send an armored cavalry with armor-piercing bows to attack Shipping City. Shipping City is only 400 miles away from Shipping Port. We can reach Shipping City in one night and attack it before Qinyu has time to burn down the granaries. This is the best strategy. I think so too. Lin Muyu smiled and picked up an arrow of command. She said, Situ Sen, listen to my order. I order you to immediately lead 20,000 armored cavalry from the Longdan army camp to attack Shipping City overnight with the aim of seizing the provisions. You must solve the problem of the provisions before dawn. Damn. Situ Sen grinned. Is it just because I spoke too much? Yes, what else do you have to say? Can I finish the soup before I leave? No, I can't. Servants, fill a pot of thick soup for General Situ Sen and let him drink it on the way. Yes, Marshal. Situ Sen did not know whether to laugh or cry. He cupped his fists and said, I understand. Marshal, if you torture me like this, I will definitely get hemorrhoids. Even if I get hemorrhoids, I must take Shipping City. Go quickly. Yes. Everyone laughed. Looking at the three armies, perhaps only Situ Sen dared to speak like this to the Marshal of the Empire without being punished. However, Situ Sen was indeed a famous general and a fierce general. He would definitely complete the orders given by Lin Muyu. As for the methods used, that was secondary. A few minutes later, Situ Sen carried a pot of thick soup and left. Lin Muyu said, Continue, tell me how to solve the problem of the lack of medicine. This is relatively simple. Si Kongyao replied, less than 70 li from here, there is a county city called Fei County. Fei County is a city famous for its medicinal herbs. It was once the city where all the herbs in the West Mountain province were concentrated. I can immediately dispatch 5,000 cavalry to Fei County. Before dawn, they will bring back a large amount of hemostatic and anti-inflammatory medicines. Chu Yao said happily, if that can be done, that would be the best. At this moment, Qin Yen, who was guarding the door, walked in and said, Big brother, it's starting to snow again. It's snowing again? Lin Muyu frowned and said, let's not care about that. Order the 3 armies to rest and reorganize tonight. We will leave for Shiping City tomorrow morning. Yes. Wait a moment, Commander Bailey Tsang. I have an order for you. Marshal, please instruct me. Bailey Tsang cupped his fists. Tomorrow morning, bring dry rations and water and leave Shiping Port with 30,000 of the Empire's navy. Return to Lingdong province and transport the rest of our troops and supplies over as soon as possible. We have captured nearly 3,000 Shang army warships, enough to be your cargo ships. Yes, understood. Chapter 1147. Shiping City was the economic, political, and military center of the Xishan province. At this moment, the sky above the city was covered in snow, and there were almost no lights in the city. No one knew how long the winter would last, but everyone knew that they had to conserve charcoal and other resources. Otherwise they would not be able to survive this long winter. The sound of hooves outside the city broke the silence. When Situ Sun arrived outside the city with 10,000 cavalry, he only saw that the west gate of Shiping City was wide open. There was not even a curfew or any soldiers guarding the gate. What's going on? Facing the dark city gate, Situ Sen squinted his eyes and said, the gate is wide open and there are no guards. It looks like there's a trap. Captain C smiled and said, Deputy Commander, the art of war says that the real is fake and the fake is real. Qinyu is an expert at scheming. Since the gate is wide open, could it be that there are no ambushes at all? Could it be that this is just an empty city to delay the speed of our attack? Forget it. The 3 armies need rations. We don't have time to waste. Situ Sin raised his hand and said, the 1,000 soldiers of the 1st Battalion will be divided into 10 teams. Every team of 100 will enter the city to search for rations and the situation of the people. Report back here in 2 hours. You must be extra careful. Qinyu may have buried some kindling or magic crystal cannons in the city. We are used to these kinds of tricks. Yes, Deputy Commander. Amidst the hurried sound of hooves, a group of people quickly entered the city. Situ Shui pursed her red lips and said, Brother, I am worried. Should I lead 10 dragon knights to spy on the situation in the city from the air? Yes. Situ Sin nodded and said, you must be careful. Okay. With a low roar from the dragon, Situ Shui also left. Holding his sword, Situ Sen urged his horse to circle around on the snowy ground. He felt very uneasy. However, if he thought about it carefully, almost all of the magic crystal cannons and native cannons in Shiping Prefecture had been taken away by Filet's main fleet. Qinyu must be very short of supplies. Moreover, he only had 7 or 8,000 old, weak and disabled soldiers. Why would he set up an ambush in the city? However, even though Situ Sen had tried his best, he still couldn't stop the development of the situation. In less than an hour, a series of loud booms could be heard in the city. Soon after, flames rose from the sky in the distance, and even the sound of fire arrows piercing through the air could be heard. Oh no, someone is arson. Situ Sen gnashed his teeth. Are we going in now? Captain C was a little angry. Don't be rash. After all, Situ Sen was experienced in battles. He squinted his eyes and said, let's wait for the report from our brothers in the city. We've only sent 1,000 men in. We can't send more troops in. Yes. As expected, in less than half an hour, a continuous stream of cavalry from the Longdan army camp rushed out of the city. Each of them was covered in dust. One of the Kiliarchs said, Deputy Commander, they've buried a few magic crystal cannons in the city. They just detonated them. Also, there are piles of firewood every 3 to 5 households in the city. Now these piles of firewood have been set on fire. The city is on fire and it looks like it's going out of control. Do you see the figures of their soldiers? Yes, they've already escaped from the east gate. Damn it, Qinyu is such a despicable person. Situ Sin trembled with hatred. He said, this lunatic wants the millions of people in Shiping City to die with us? Where's the grain? Where's the grain stored in the city? The granary of Shiping Prefecture is on fire. The flames are soaring. We can't get close at all. God damn it, Sidu Sen pulled out his sword and said, quickly enter the city to put out the fire. Send a letter to the marshal and his highness to inform them of the situation here. Quickly, immediately, send someone to beat the drums and gongs to encourage the people to come out and fight the fire. We can't let Shiping City, a 1,000-year-old city, burn down in the blink of an eye. Yes. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 steel cavalry became a special force to fight the fire. However, it seemed that the number was far from enough. Qin Yu was too smart. He knew that most of the people in the city had left the city to cut wood and come back to pile up firewood. Now that the fire had burned the people's firewood, it would also burn down Shiping City. Without the people and grain in Shiping City, the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Qin Empire would not be able to establish a foothold on this continent. Until noon, the fire had still not been extinguished. Nearly half of Shiping Prefecture had been burned down. The once prosperous Shiping Prefecture had become a thing of the past. Outside the city, Lin Muyu accompanied Qin Yin and led the vanguard cavalry of the army to Shiping City. Situ Sen and Situ Shui led the steel cavalry to greet them with their faces covered in soot. Without saying anything, Situ Sen dismounted and knelt on the snowy ground. Ignoring the soot on his face, he said with red eyes, "My lord, I am incompetent. The granary has been set on fire. We didn't even manage to get a single grain of rice back. Moreover, many of the houses of the people are also on fire. I can only order the troops to stop futilely trying to put out the granary fire and have them help the people fight the fire instead." Lin Muyu dismounted and helped Situ Sen up. She said, "General Sen, you did not do anything wrong. We should help the people fight the fire. Only by winning the hearts of the people can we conquer the world." The Qin Empire came from afar to let the people of the celestial pole continent know of Her Highness's wisdom and that the Qin Empire is a civilized country governed by a constitution. Yes. Thank you, my lord, for not pursuing the crime of dereliction of duty. You did not dereliction of duty. It was Qin Yu who was too cunning. Lin Muyu walked into the city. A group of ashen-faced soldiers from the Longdan army camp knelt on the snow on both sides of the road and said loudly, "Greetings, Lin General." "Get up." Lin Muyu's heart was cold. He looked up at the sky. Fine snow was still falling, mixed with some grayish-white smoke. He stretched out his hand and caught a piece of dust. The dust rolled out of his palm. Lin Muyu felt a slight pain in his chest. This was the dust after the rice was burned. Qin Yu was indeed ruthless. He wanted to end the food supply of Shiping City. "What is the specific situation of the food supply, Ah Shui?" "My lord," Situ Shui said with red eyes, "the largest granary in Shiping Prefecture has been burned. It is said that Qin Yu has been collecting food in the city for the past few days. It seems that he has also burned it. Now in Shiping City millions of grains have been burned. Not only is there no food in the treasury, but even the people's homes have no food. There is only enough for them to eat. It is definitely not enough to support our army of hundreds of thousands. The three armies rely on military provisions. Without food there will be a mutiny." Lin Muyu took a deep look at Situ Shui and said, "We must find a way to get food as soon as possible. Otherwise the army will starve from today onwards." Situ Shui said, "My lord, I have found a useful piece of information. Although Qin Yu has left with his defeated soldiers, he did not take everyone with him. Before Qin Yu left, some of Filet's subordinates had relatively luxurious mansions in Shiping City. In addition to many servants and concubines, these mansions also have a lot of food and fodder. We can slaughter pigs for the new year. First, take some people to raid these people's homes and get some food to solve the urgent problem." "Good idea." Lin Muyu's eyes lit up and said, "Situ Sen, Situ Shui, do it immediately." Yes. The two of them led the cavalry without stopping. Lin Muyu turned around, held the reins of Qin Yin's warhorse and said, "Let's go. We will accompany Her Highness to Shiping Prefecture." Shiping Prefecture was the center of Shiping City. It was also the place where Qin Yin would be overseeing for a long time in the future. With the Empress here, the morale of the three armies would be boosted. When the group of civil and military officials entered Shiping Prefecture, they were somewhat astonished. They had long heard of the affluence of the celestial pole continent, but no one had expected that a mere Shiping Prefecture would be as luxurious as Zetian Palace Hall. In fact, it might even be more luxurious. One could well imagine how luxurious Qinji Palace Hall was. It was simply unimaginable. In front of Shiping City, the 12 dragon-shaped totem pillars of the Qinji Empire towered into the sky. Although they were a little charred, it didn't affect their imposing manner. Behind the pillars was the main gate of the mansion. 8 people entered and 8 exited. At this moment, the guards had already been replaced by Imperial Guards and Imperial Guards. Everyone entered through the main gate. From afar, the main gate was actually 1,000 meters away from the mansion. Along the way there were paths paved with glazed crystals, and both sides of the path were heavily guarded. Shiping Prefecture must have been extremely prosperous in the past. With such a superficial appearance, it's no wonder that the Tianji Empire was defeated. Feng Jixing laughed. However, Lin Muyu didn't think so. She said, the biggest reason for the Tianji Empire's defeat wasn't extravagance, but the disunity between the emperor and his subjects. If Baiming Yuan didn't suspect Gong Xiangming, Falei, and Qinyu, and didn't fight among themselves, this wouldn't have happened. That's true. Feng Jixing raised his head and looked at the fire at the back of the main hall. He said, that should be the place where the granary was burned. Yes. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Qin Xiaoli, Tang Jin, and Xiang Yu, the 3 commanders, immediately gather manpower to fetch water to extinguish the fire. Minimize the damage to Shiping City from the fire to the greatest extent. Yes, Lin General. The 3 commanders turned and left. Lin Muyu continued, Wei Chou, go and put up a notice to appease the people. Put up the Empire's constitution and inform the people of Shiping City that from now on, Xishan Province is the territory of the Qin Empire. Everything will be governed according to the Empire's constitution. Order the 3 armies to not offend the local people. Otherwise they will be punished by military law. Yes, my lord. Wei Chou brought a group of staff officers and went straight to the side hall. For the time being, that would be their office. Lin Muyu looked at Chu Yao behind her and said with a smile, Sister Chu Yao, temporarily set up the spiritual medicine department in Shiping Prefecture. That way we can take care of each other. I'll listen to you. When it was close to dusk, rows of carriages carrying provisions entered Shiping Prefecture. It was Situ Sen and Situ Shui who had returned. Their faces were full of excitement. How much provisions did you get from raiding the houses, generals? Feng Jixing asked with a smile. 50,000. We got at least 50,000 dawn of provisions. Situ Sin laughed and said, these bastards really hid a lot of provisions. Chapter 1148. 50,000 dawn. Lin Muyu was silent. Situ Shui was stunned. What? Do you think it's too little? I thought we could get at least 100,000 dawn. Lin Muyu frowned and said, we need to provide rations for 300,000 soldiers. That means we need to consume 30 to 40,000 dawn worth of rations a day. The 50,000 dawn you got is only enough for 1 day. It's far from enough, yes. Feng Jixing nodded. It's a pity that the millions of dawn of provisions in Shiping Prefecture have been burned. Otherwise, it would have been enough for our army to stay here for a month. Ding Shi cupped his fists. I will take out the gold coins from Shiping Prefecture's treasury to collect and buy food from the people. I hope it will be enough. It's too difficult. Feng Jixing said, the Tianji Empire has been fighting for a long time. The food has been almost consumed. Situ Shui said, my lord, I heard that there is a grassland about 20 miles south of Shiping City. There are several large ranches there which used to be the property of several aristocrats. Later they were taken over by the Yangshang dynasty and became the property of the state. Why don't we send people to the ranches overnight and drive the cattle and sheep over to serve as food for the army? That's a good idea. Do it immediately. Yes. As soon as Situ Shui left, the group of people sat in the hall with sad expressions on their faces, and just sipped on their tea. What should we do now? Lin Muyu looked at Ding Shi and said, Marshal Ding, you are the commander of the supplies department. Say something. I don't care. You have to get food for me. Ding Shi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm new here. Do you think I have everything? Besides, should you, the commander of the 3 armies, say something like, I don't care? After saying that, Ding Shi pondered and said, if it doesn't work, we can only send the army to capture the surrounding prefectures as soon as possible to collect food. Xishan province has been managed by Si Kongyao for many years. It is a relatively rich province. The granaries of various prefectures are still full. Chen Yu has burned Shiping City, but he doesn't have the energy to burn more prefectures. Attacking prefectures requires food. This is a big problem in itself. Wei Chou hit the nail on the head. Ding Shi squinted and smiled. There is another way. Bring enough money and buy food from the villages and towns. That won't work. This is in conflict with our constitution. What will the people think of the empress? Lin Muyu shook her head. This method is unpopular and must not be implemented. Ding Shi spread his hands. This won't do, that won't do. I'm not going to be the commander of the supplies department anymore. Lin Muyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't. You are making things difficult for us if you shirk your responsibilities. Ding Shi grinned and said, how about this? Si Kongyao and Lu Bai are more familiar with Xishan province than we are. However, they have brought people to get medicine. We will discuss this when they arrive at Shiping City. That's the only way. At this moment, Chu Yao came from the back of the palace and said, the spiritual fire department has prepared dinner. Everyone can eat. Those who want to eat, come over. Okay. Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing stood up together, picked up the helmets on the table and followed Chu Yao to eat. Wei Chou, Zhang Wei, Luo Yu, Guan Xing, and the others looked at each other and immediately followed. They fought to be the first in battle. It should be the same when eating. The entire back of the palace was brightly lit. 8 large tables were set up, and most of the captaincy and commander-level warriors were eating here. Moreover, the dinner was very simple. There was no chef, and it was all cooked in a big pot made by the spiritual fire department. However, everyone's physical strength was exhausted, and they ate with relish. No one spoke and just lowered their heads to eat. Halfway through the meal, Si Kongyao and Lu Bai returned. Yao, sit down and eat with us. Lin Muyu ordered someone to add a stool to the side. After Si Kongyao sat down, she said gloomily, that bastard Qin Yu actually set fire to my Shiping prefecture. I'm so angry. I have managed Shiping prefecture for so long and renovated it so many times. I planned to have a palace-like residence for Brother Yu and the Empress when they came down, but now it has been burnt black. I am so angry. She didn't seem to want to eat and kept stomping her feet. Lin Muyu said, Yao, let's not talk about these useless things. The most important thing now is rations. Qin Yu set fire to the granary in the treasury. Now we are out of rations and only have 1 day's worth of rations left. Otherwise we will have to kill the horses to appease our hunger. Do you have any ideas? For example, are there any cities or prefectures nearby that have a lot of rations and are easy to conquer? The matter of rations. Si Kongyao actually smiled. Her smile was extremely sweet. She said, Brother Yu, you have to praise me on this matter? Oh, what? Lin Muyu was stunned. Even Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Feng Jixing, and Qin Yan were very surprised. No one knew what this princess of Shiping was up to. Si Kongyao smiled and said, a year ago, I ordered the construction of an imperial garden on the right side of Shiping City that covers an area of half the size of Shiping Prefecture. There are all kinds of rare flowers and fruits planted in it. It can be said to be evergreen all year round and very beautiful. Although there are no artificial mountains, it can still be considered a paradise. What's there to praise? Should I praise you for your extravagance? Lin Muyu was speechless. But Si Kongyao tilted her head and smiled. There is a huge cellar under this imperial garden. For more than a year, I have secretly purchased rations from Xishan province and Huiyuan province and stored them in there. My guards are responsible for transporting and storing them. No one knows that there is a cellar under this imperial garden and there are a total of 1.2 million dawn of rations in there. What? Lin Muyu was so shocked that she stood up. Just now, I went to the imperial garden to take a look as soon as I entered the prefecture. Sure enough, that idiot Qin Yu only burned down the imperial garden. He didn't realize that the entrance to the cellar was under the only newly built pavilion in the imperial garden. How is it? Quickly praise me. She pouted her small mouth and looked very cute. She made Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the others stare at her in a daze. Lin Muyu was ecstatic. She couldn't help but hug Si Kongyao and said happily, Yao, you are the savior of the 3 armies. I thank you on behalf of the Qin Empire. Being hugged, Si Kongyao's face was full of a happy smile. But when she saw her 2 sisters-in-law, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, looking at her like this, she immediately felt a little guilty. She stuck out her tongue to express her apology. After a few seconds, Lin Muyu let go of Si Kongyao and said, Wei Chou, immediately take some people to move the provisions in the cellar. Yes, Your Excellency. Wei Chou put the steamed bun in his mouth, picked up the helmet and left. Ding Shi clapped his hands and said with a smile, Thank you, Commandery Princess of Shiping. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that I would have been dismissed as the commander of the supply department. Lin General, Can I breathe a sigh of relief now? No, you still have to continue gathering rations. 1,200,000 don is only enough for a month. Don't forget, we will have another 500,000 soldiers coming from Lingdong province soon. We need to prepare rations before they come. Then how should I collect? I don't care. If I do, I will be the commander of the supply department. Bah! Ding Shi grinned and said to the general beside him, San Gung, immediately assemble our provisions transport team after dinner. We will go to the surrounding villages and towns to scrape a layer of oil first. Ding Shi nodded and said, Yes, Commander. Si Kongyao pursed her lips and smiled. It's not difficult if you want more provisions. Within 100 miles from Shiping City, Jiaoyuan Commandery, Shangchong Commandery, Shizhong Commandery, Jingyuan Chamber of Commerce, and Tianyuan Shang League will all have provisions. Moreover, the garrison of these 3 commanderies is less than 1,000 people. With my token we can trick them into opening the city gates. As for Jingyuan Chamber of Commerce and Tianyuan Shang League, they are old friends with our Baizhe mercenary group. As long as we have the money, the provisions will flow continuously to Shiping Prefecture through various channels. That's great. Feng Jixing said with a smile, Your sister is too powerful. I have a feeling. What feeling? Lin Muyu asked. Obtaining Si Kongyao is equivalent to obtaining half of the Tianji Empire. Haha, actually, I have the same feeling. Si Kongyao blushed and said, Brother, you left the Baizhe mercenary group to me and asked me to do things. I must not let him down. I must complete the task well. Otherwise, I will not be the Tianji sect Si Kongyao in vain. Lin Muyu suddenly thought of something and asked, Yao, how is the Tianji sect now? Is I not good? Si Kongyao was a little sad and said, Ever since grandfather ascended to the realm beyond Avalon, the Tianji sect's main altar was destroyed by Yangshang's men. Many of the Tianji sect's members wandered the martial world. I don't know how many people still support the Tianji sect. Why don't you rebuild the Tianji sect's main altar in Shiping City? Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, From now on, you will be the Tianji sect's new leader. Announce to the world that you will invite the Tianji sect's members to Shiping City to serve the Tianji sect and the Qin Empire. This way, not only can you win over the hearts of the people, but you can also win over a group of skilled soldiers for the Qin Empire. What do you think? Si Kongyao pouted and said, You're thinking about the Tianji sect again. Brother Yu, do you want Yao's life to play with you in this world war? We have been together for a long time, Lin Muyu said with a smile. Qinin said, Yao, don't worry. The Qin Empire will never forget your meritorious deeds. Moreover, you started this war only to protect himself and to pacify the war. Once the war is over, the entire celestial pole continent will be handed over to you to govern. You should be relieved now, right? I hate governing the country. I want to travel with Brother Yu and my 2 sisters-in-law. Si Kongyao blinked her eyes. Oh, there's a new member in the team, Feng Jixing said with a smile. Si Kongyao was stunned. What do you mean, General Feng? Feng Jixing said, Because Yu has already promised that once the war is over and order is restored, he will bring his 2 wives, me, the big brother, Chu Yao, and Shi Yan to travel the world together and not care about the affairs of the world. Now that you are added, doesn't it mean that there's a new member in the team? Si Kongyao couldn't help but smile sweetly. So, we are a big family? Yes. At the side, Ding Shi smiled and said, Your family really plays an important role in the entire universe. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.